Hello, hello, hello. I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to the my broadcast channel, where we're going to be covering the current financial system over the next couple of days. We'll be talking about this and how it relates to the world around us. We just finished our series on GCR, the Big Lie, and explain why it's a big lie. You can look at any of those previous episodes that we did on GCR, the Big Lie, and really understand why it is a big lie. Not that it wasn't needed, and not that we're going to have a reset of the global world economy. That is happening. It's underway as we speak. But the way in which it was presented to us is a psyop. It's a way to control the masses, and with several objectives. And we have to move beyond that and move into where we're moving forward with the quantum financial system. And I did, in yesterday's program, read a piece that Kim Gauguin had written about the quantum financial system and how much more advanced it is than, say, something you might have from D-Wave, for example. So what is D-Wave? D-Wave is, if you check out quantum computers, you'll find D-Wave. And this is like a first generation IBM system, right? When IBM first was put together and they first started making, thinking machines, or better to say calculating machines, they'd have like 3 floors of a room of a building that was set to do these simple math problems. So and they scaled that down, and they even originally programmed those things with punch cards or punch tapes. That means there's little holes. If you kind of remember the player pianos, those ones that play all by themselves, they had a roll, and on that roll there were holes, and it would go through wherever there was a hole, the note would be played, right? And so you'd actually get the piano to play by itself. Same concept. It was transferring of information from a piece of paper, right, that was on a wrong scroll, and they put it in a place where it went by, it transmitted information that happened to be into sound. So when they first built the first IBM computers, they were just transferring the information, again, from that roll, but now actually performing a calculation, adding 1 + 1. Very simple stuff, addition, subtraction, multiplication. And it took rooms. Now, we walk around with things like this. That type of device has so much more than that whole building in computational power did. So where D-Wave is creating those very large room computing systems to do the first translation of information from where we are into quantum space to get a quantum result back. So the advantage of this in quantum space is that things you don't have any time factor or distance factor, meaning in transmission of data, there is no time involved and no space, meaning that it just exists. So whenever a calculation is performed, the result, it just exists. Does it take time as we count it? Yes, to do that, but it's very micro. And it's more about the moving the data in and out to our space. That's where the bottleneck is. In the quantum field, everything is still at a level where time and space make no difference, so the calculations are done. So that system, though, when you're dealing at the quantum level, is affected by the actual users. Right? So there's been a lot of experiments that show that when you observe, you affect the result. So why is that? Why is it if a man is just observing something, the result is affected? And it's affected at a quantum level. And it's because of us all being connected, which, what we're hearing more about from Tui and the elders from the Fijian, and they're keeping of the tradition, and this time of coming about that's happening right now is about on that spirit level to see where we're connected. It's a spiritual level, that spiritual connection to the source. So when we're talking about quantum computing, we're talking about a way in which we are connected to the source, and because we're connected to it, we have an effect. So these first systems were requiring massive amounts of processing power in the regard to the amount of space that it's taking up in building the computer, our quantum computers, and the overall result, though, is that as they continue to ramp up their qubits, their way of calculating and interfacing, when they ramp that up, the processing power gets ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. It gets to the point where it can calculate everything in the universe within the next few years, maybe in this year. Who knows? It could, but because they're rapidly increasing this processing power to where they can calculate everything in the universe that quickly, because the amount of processing power that is needed is in the source, right? There's no time or space, so why not be able to access everything needed to translate it back into our reality, into our dimension, you might say. And there's a struggle for conversational words. So when I'm relaying this to you, so please forgive me stumbling over a couple of words, because it is hard to put into context things that don't exist yet, right? And we have to find our words to translate the information. And so that's one advantage of having these kind of conversations and people working in, is to also be able to feed back and forth. That's why working with Stefan on our tank, so that we can get this this conversation started, and with Tui, and we can get the conversation going, and we start to feel that there's more about what we're doing here, and expressing it. So when we're talking about the quantum space, and I laid out this foundation for a reason, to say about how much space we used to use for IBM computers, and now we have cell phones with much more processing power, or laptops or televisions that have so much in them, in processing power, that what is the next step? How much smaller do we get than this? I mean, can we have the actual phone, the actual computer part of this is tiny. It's already down to so small that if you actually saw it, it would be very difficult to see it. If you removed its shell and got down to the actual little processing core, it's so small. So that's going to happen with the D-Wave computers. It's going to happen with all the quantum systems. They're going to reduce in size drastically. When they get to the point when they can do infinite calculations per second, and the time to go in and out of quantum space to get that information in and out is also reduced to small amounts of time. It's basically instant now. But there's still some time delay. But how small will it get? Well, most definitely it'll get small as this. It just will. We will it so. And when we're talking about interfacing with quantum, We already do it in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts, in our spirit. We're already interfacing with quantum. We're doing it all the time. Manifestations that we make our reality is an access of the quantum space. Just as in these computing devices that were made by IBM, they're just also mimicking what we do in our brains. Where do we add? We add right here. Where do we subtract? We subtract right here. We do this calculations, right? So we're just creating tools to do things a little bit more efficiently. And ultimately, when we make a quantum system to help us as a tool to do things more efficiently, what are we having it do? And what is the means in which we can access it? Our bodies are already accessing it, right? We're already a tool of emanating into quantum space, but we're developing these other tools to do so. So here's another way of thinking about this. If we were more, let's just say more connected with the way to do things and had the correct tools that we had within us, could we actually make a quantum system that did not require a tool like this? That we could literally just integrate and converse with this tool, communicate with this tool. So he's struggling with words, right? How do we communicate with this tool that we could just, in essence, think about it or will it into what we're looking for? Is that something that at the end of the road? Is that the road we're on? And I would say yes. Because this is where we're already at with Kim. She's using a much more advanced quantum system. Systems that would be so much more advanced because there was, let's say, other technologies that were available to create that system much more efficiently. And as I was describing yesterday on how quantum teleportation of data could exist, it's on taking crystals and chopping them up. There's a diamond machine that's extruding, right? And you just keep breaking them as they come off. There's a connection, and they can transmit the data instantaneously from crystal to crystal. You can take those crystals anywhere in the world, and they exist. Now here's a physical thing, right, that we can work with. Can we transmit data now without that physical thing? We do all the time. If anyone has ever experienced any sort of telepathy or anywhere where I'll give you an example. And if you are connected with a mate, you know what each other is thinking. How is that? Where'd that come from? Did someone implant a crystal and make a connection between you two? Or did you develop a connection another way? Did you connect and then be able to develop that connection over time? Yes. You made a connection with someone and you developed a way of communicating that even when you are distant on the planet's surface, that something happens to one or the other, you know something went wrong, something happened, or something good happened. So that communication exists. Quantum communication exists in you now, and you've experienced it. So how does an advanced technology, work, right? Do you have to carry a laptop? Do you have to carry a cell phone? Or can you just connect to it because it exists and you just communicate? So there are examples all around you where you're doing it yourself. You're interfacing on the quantum level with many, many people. And right now I'm communicating with the Galactic Unicorn. This is Space Command to Galactic Unicorn.
Galactic Unicorn reporting in for duty. All is well in the Unicorn universe.
Well, every time I see that little icon pop up, it gives me a smile. Anyway, thanks for joining, Tank. I'm just kind of going over how quantum computers of today, where they're headed, and describing how quantum communication happens even within us already, how we communicate with others. Like if you have a mate, I was an example. You connect with a mate, and you know what's happening with that, or if something of either tragic or exciting happened, you get a feeling, right? You have a communication that something had occurred. That's at the quantum level. And so, in and much more advanced than the D-Wave quantum computer of today. If the quantum computer of D-Wave, say 10 years or 20 years or 50 years from now, is shrunk down from a room size to something so small as even the crystals that I was describing yesterday as a way of communicating, these little physical things, at what point that you don't actually need a physical thing, to be carried around with you. Maybe that physical thing just has to be a crystal sitting someplace, anywhere, to access. So anyway, that was my description, and I was saying that that the D-Wave system is a very low level right now, even though it's advanced for our technology. But in regards to where quantum will be, in the amount of processing power and everything will be 10 or 20 years from now, is going to be such much more advanced that it will actually get to a point of instantaneous computing. And you can basically feed any question in and get it out based upon the structure that was put into place, what was built in a quantum place. So to put it another way is, once say a quantum computer is built, and it's let's just say it's like a forge, and you're taking the raw materials and forging something, right? And it's putting that out into the quantum space. Once it exists out there, it's always there throughout time and space. And that also includes any quantum computer that was ever made in the last 5 billion years. It exists, and it will always exist because it was made and put there.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Right?
I mean, it's all energy exists, right? I mean, real quantum systems are really based more on energy than anything else. So it's like energy never ceases to exist, right? It's the same argument that you make, if you just want to make a logical argument to someone about the existence of an afterlife or God or those things. Same principle. Yeah. And that's really what Tui is doing when he's talking about it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I brought that up. Yeah, you're missing the good stuff in the beginning. I'm telling you.
Man, I'm trying. I don't know why you're dropping bombs. You tell me you're going to read an article. Next thing I know, before you were talking about, I thought you were going to do your promos then. Yeah, that's cool. I'll come on after.
It's all right. But I didn't actually know I was going to cover that until we actually just I launched into it. So I just described how because we talked about the quantum system answer. So I want to put it in perspective. I was going to go to the D-Wave website, and I just kind of painted a picture on where we're going with quantum and what we know. But what we don't know is, say, what the secret space program has been working on in quantum. And I know they have, right?
Well,
and,
yes.
and then what they're working on is not even close to what Kim has been working with.
Yeah. I would say they haven't been working with too much for a while because Kim disabled their system a while back. So, and they were mainly just focused on getting access to, the real quantum system. And they were using a bunch of weapons they had for a long time that were kind of outdated, didn't really have any power. So, or not, they had power. I mean, to us, they would have had power, but by comparison to the things that Kim's people have access to, it wasn't that serious.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that was just a side note. Didn't mean to distract the point.
No. It's an interesting point anyway. It's the systems are at different stages, and there's different intellects that have been working on these for quite a while, and there's some more advanced that certain people have access to, and since this system was being put into place that Kim got connected to, was being put into place by the great dictator.
Great dictator. It sounds so nice when Tui says it, like the Great White Throne. I mean, it sounds so nice.
Yeah, the Great White Throne. Okay, so the Great White Throne, we'll call it that. Of course, it's not a white supremacist thing. So.
Yeah, I just call him Marduk. I'm not going to be afraid to say anybody's name. If he can hear what I'm thinking, that's fine. Personally, that's me though.
Yeah, okay.
And I believe Tui on that's possible, but I don't think it's disrespectful to say his name. From what I have some, I have some. You want to talk about some deep intel? I actually got a report from somebody on this.
Okay.
They were comparing Marduk. There's this gentleman who talks about it, and he calls him the Great Red Vampire, right? and he's been this around for all this period of time, right? And he was the scourge of humanity. Now he's talking about the same guy, right? It's the same Marduk, and he was saying how nobody ever really dies, right? You just kind of recycled, and he was talking about this whole experience about how he's waking up, and when they wake up, they're kind of allowed to review the highlights of their time of what they did in this last life, and when and it's a touchy time, right? Because they can go either way. They can decide if they want to continue down that path of darkness, or they have regret. And so he was kind of reconnected to his natural state of where he originated as a fractal of source, and he was filled with remorse and regret, right? So they're now, I don't know, reviving him in some way. I mean, not in a I mean, he wouldn't. I don't think he would connect with those memories or who he was then, but I just thought it was interesting that these kind of things, these energetic things that Tui is talking about, and Kim has talked to me about, and others about, for a long time. It's like it's hard to ignore or deny that they're all real after a while. Yeah. When people are just kind of connecting on a whole different level, because it's just amazing.
No, I know. I actually talked specifically about that as well. So you missed all the good stuff. I'm telling you. So Tui comes on here, and he's communicating at the quantum level. That's what I was expressing, is that it's more from the spirit. It's the source. When we're talking quantum, we're talking about the source. And when you build a structure there to communicate, that's all we're doing. I mean, the first IBM computer, it was designed to add 1 + 1, and it took 3 rooms, right? Just doing simple mathematics, right? And then 3 floors of one building to create this system, right? And it had punch cards, right? And I also talked about
in Banton, that's where I'm from.
Yeah, and then the player piano, right? It has a scroll with all these little holes on it, right? It's just holding data, and that when the hole comes around and it actually is transmitting that data into sound. So this is just another form when they took that information and put it into a way of counting in a computer. That then translated down to where we have our cell phones of today. So, so this is a very much a progress in which we're watching happen, and we may and so when we're dealing with quantum and able to do things instantaneously, uh, basically we get to the point where we just can think because we're doing it already. We're communicating with our minds, right? Already, as I described with your mate, you have a communication that's telepathic. That communication can also exist to connect to a quantum system, and you just think. And I've seen systems of that where you just think about something. That you have a device. There was a system that was developed by the guy who invented Atari way back when. This was in the 80s, in which this device he had created a way where it was a ring. You just wore a ring, and whatever you thought would be represented on the screen. So it was simple in training your mind. You first had a black side of the screen and a white side, and all you need to do is think about reversing them. Right, and
That's
then
amazing.
then you got to where you got to play tic tac toe just by thinking of it.
Do
That
you want
system.
to play a game?
So this stuff has existed, right? So to think about a quantum computer and a quantum interface, can that system, which as described in what I read from Kim yesterday, was a way in which people can be interfaced with it by their DNA. They can be recognized, and the RNA for an object. These are basically addresses, and you
Yes.
can communicate, and you can move things from one side to the screen to the other just by thinking about it. And even we could do that. Hey, Tank, I want to send you, some money. Just think about it, and it moves from my account. Now, do you think it's not possible for that to happen, or that it is already
I
being done?
I would say that the most advanced quantum computing system that exists is you, right? We have the ability to be quantum right now. You know, um, that's exactly what the possibilities are all the time, right? You have a I know it's hard to conceive at times, but the reality is, Tui was actually just talking about this, right? So uh, there's the idea is, like we look at it like traveling at light speed is really advanced. Well, yes, that would be really advanced, but if you could just collapse realities to occupy the same space for a moment as you go from one place to another, or transfer something from one place to another, or a thought, or just reach in to grab something, you collapse all other possibilities, right? And by collapsing all other possibilities, you can literally bring something into existence or communicate. What? I'll give you, actually, I have a great example because you do it all the time, believe it or not, right? So, for example, if you ever thought about someone, right, and you thought, I should give them a call, and you call them up and they go, I was just thinking about you, right? Because you were communicating in the quantum, you know,
Yeah, or you
uh,
you reach for the phone and they're dialing you.
right? I'll I'll give you an example. One that happened to me today, right? I had this flash of uh this song my friend Jarvis Smith and his band Phoenix Rose play, right? It's called "Come Follow Me Now." Like people might have seen it on some of the videos. I use that song, and there's this part in the song where the instrumentals cut out just for a little bit, right? And the chorus starts, right? And it's like, are you sick and tired of all the waiting, right? And it goes in this whole thing. And I'm not gonna sing because I'll really embarrass myself more than I already do. But but I love that part of the song, right? I love that. So I see him right in this flashing moment today, and he's up on stage in front of this crowd, right? And I'm there with him. I don't know what I was doing there, but I'm on the stage with him, right? And And all of a sudden he turns to his band and he has the whole band cut, and the whole crowd starts singing the song, right? His song, right? And they're all going through the whole thing like, are you sick and tired of all the waiting? Are you sick and tired of all the hating? Are you sick and tired of all the faking? And they're going through this song and this incredible energy right in this dream. And it was a big celebration, right? And he looked at me but it was all the music cut out. It was just the crowd. It was amazing, right? And so anytime I see some random thing like that in my in a moment, I texted all that to him right then, you know. And now come to find out, in that exact moment, he was in uh, a leadership meeting with all of this entire group of ethical business leaders who are and they're all going to be working with us, right? And he has a ethical media company. And in that moment when I saw that, he was there in this meeting, and as a show of unity, right? They were repeating these things, and they all started to repeat the same thing because they're sick of things not changing, but they wanted to have really a unified voice for a moment. So I think there's about 15 people to 20 people, and they were all chanting, this kind of thing. They were just repeating it together in unison to feel the energy that it created. Right now, that energy was so strong that it translated to me in that exact same moment in this other way. So what? And I had no idea that was happening. But I mean, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's this powerful connection we have, and right now you have energy that is cleared out, right? This dusty, cloudy, dirty energy that would alter frequencies and alter perceptions of reality, or limit our abilities, right? With these nanites that have been in everything, right? They create their own, static grid and frequency and can jam things. And those things are disabled. That's why that's why Tui came out of nowhere, right? Because there's a clarity that's communicating.
This is the time. Right?
Now,
If everyone's tired of waiting, I can just suggest that everyone follow the immortal words of Bob Newhart. They said, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop waiting!"
Bob Newhart. That is a reference. Wow.
Yeah,
Classic. Yeah,
you know,
man.
there's some classics there. It's like I used to laugh on my side when I was a kid. Watching the Carol Burnett show, right? So those things you can still find those on YouTube, right, where he does his psychiatrist bit, and he says, "My psychiatry is unusual. I only charge $5. It's in complete treatment is $5, but you have to prepay, and there's no refunds." Um, and the woman comes in and says, "Well, I have this fear. I'm going to be buried alive in a box." Right? And then and it's like, this is irrational, right? That's very strange. But okay, pay me the $5, and then and he says, "Well, okay, this is your treatment. Stop it! Don't think like that.
Don't
What
think
are
like
you
that. Yeah.
doing? That's crazy."
Oh man, that's a lot
Right?
easier than I thought.
Yeah, stop it. So
Just stop it.
when you're tired of waiting, just stop it. And it's a shock factor, right? You've heard of someone shaking someone to wake them up, right? So we're talking about waking up people. The QAnon is about the Great Awakening, right? That's one of the tactics is the Great Awakening, waking people up. Uh, so be very interesting to see how many people have awoken when things start coming down the line here.
I think it'll be a process that will, everybody will just kind of slowly come around to different things at different times, and then, and I think, if you're ahead of the pack kind of thing, you're seeing things now. You should really, be grateful and humble for that, and just don't get frustrated with people. Be kind. Try to wake them up. Or try your best to just set an example. That's the beauty about when you embrace the yourself as kind of a light being, right? You can shake people awake, or you can just shine brighter. When the light comes up, doesn't it just kind of force you to wake up.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the same as shaking them or yelling, "Stop it!" You know, the bright light. They're just blinded. They see
Exactly.
the energy, the heat. Okay, what's going on here? When they wake up that way. So there's many ways to wake up.
Many, many ways, yes.
Well, should we have an
So,
update?
yeah, let me just. I know that people they probably are going crazy with our banter. So right now, I checked with Kim. She was not able to, or has not yet made it to the teller level. The What that means, the teller level is the regular, um, usable place where the average bank teller can see, like, oh, you have this much money in your account. So that means it's in the bank. The banks have acknowledged it being there. We've got acknowledgement that we know it's there. So that is tremendous news. And from this point, uh, to the best of my knowledge, from all sources, uh, and this, please don't be too shocked by this, but Steve Mnuchin was not able to pull off the RV today. And the
Aw,
Rothschilds,
they
the
promised.
Rothschilds, I know it's a shock. We were all kind of banking on that, but the Rothschilds did not bring in any money for the U.S. government. So after years of reliable service, it looks like they finally let us down, if you can believe it. So but yeah, so the Rothschilds weren't able to bring the money in for the government. That did not happen as was promised today by Steve Mnuchin, and Kim has not quite got. She's brought the money into the bank successfully. It's very well known, and right now we're just waiting for the to complete. She did initiate and complete the bypass, but she's waiting for confirmation that it's there from the actual teller level. That's where she would need it from, so that we know it's live and we can access it, because that's the most important part.
I
So,
mean, you can walk in at the retail, meet a teller, and extract cash. That's
well, yeah, that, or any one of 1,000 other things like that. Like, I know Kim has built an entirely two other banks. One was kind of turned against her a couple years ago, or well, yeah, a couple years ago, and so she doesn't have access to that one.
Are we allowed to
And
talk about that one?
well, I kind of feel like we have to, um, and I wasn't going to, but I actually do feel that I have to talk about it, because it's somewhat of a public service announcement, and I think it's very important. Um, so the the tribes out of or not the tribes, excuse me, the Kingdom of Manna. Some people may have heard of. Now, I remember I asked him extensively about this. Now, the Kingdom of Manna, there was there was a guard that used to be with Kim, and that guard, at that time there was certain things Kim knew she had to do. Now, even though she was the sovereign, like Tui said, she had to be acknowledged by another sovereign. So she appointed this gentleman, whose name I'm not going to say, as the, you know, I forget what the actual title is. The documents are actually available on the Speak Project. I just can't remember the date, so I'm not sure exactly where they are, but they are available on the Speak Project. There's only about a year's worth of blogs, so you can find them. And on there, she acknowledges as the royal monarch of the planet, the sole royal monarch, the sole sovereign royal monarch of the planet. She acknowledges this individual as the his Majesty, the guarding something or other king of Manna, right? And and he's acknowledged, and then he, in turn, as a sovereign king, turns and acknowledges her as the royal sovereign sole monarch of the planet, right? And that acknowledgement is key, as Tui said, for sovereignty. Now, the idea behind that all along was that she was doing that to create a kind of a buffer between her and other issues. And she had hired some of the best programmers slash hackers, and was working directly with them to build a formidable new financial system. That system is oftentimes what you know the cabal and the deep state and all the rumors from the GCR. That system is what they would often try to claim as the new quantum financial system, right? Because they stole it. So what they did was come to find out the program director or the programmers slash hackers, they were existing. Excuse me, they were programming from the Bush Ranch in Paraguay, and when that came out, Kim obviously knew, you know, she'd been deceived, and she spent 2 years working with them to build that system, and she was betrayed by a guy who was her very close personal security for 4 years. So it's part of the reason why she's when these other two people that are on tour out there trying to convince people that they're so important, they say that she's volatile. You know, I think that's a I think to be volatile after you've been betrayed by people that were supposed to protect you, and by almost everyone she's worked with, when all she's trying to do is help people, and she is the one who actually has the authority. She is the one who has the power, the DNA, all of the rights to do this. And this nonsense they put out there is that she's been removed by the Galactic Federation. No, she has not. As a matter of fact, she's been promoted by them because she keeps doing the right thing. So, and I don't even know if I don't know if it's the Galactic Federation. I know that she has several roles, though, including the ambassador for the planet, and she is also the Earth Commander. Um, and that is a fact. Those are not made up, silly roles. You know, the people on the planet, there's a problem with, but there's at least 32 other galactic races who have been enslaved here and have been permanent residents for a long time, and all of them recognize her as the Earth Commander. Just FYI. Now, I say that because we're in this transitional moment, and I think it's very, very important to kind of stop beating around the bush that our sovereignty, this 26,000-year cycle for all of humanity is on the line. So if you realize that the choice that's out there is this, there is the choice of freedom and sovereignty, which is prophesied of, right? And this is what Tui is talking about. That's why he came out to acknowledge Kim as the sole sovereign. And then there is the option. And the option is all these people who have tried to kill Kim, tried to take her out, they have repeatedly failed to follow through on every contract. They have never once, even the government has not come through on a single deal, a promise, signed contracts. They have not done their part. She has funded the government for a year, and they still have not come through on their part. So the option is to go with them, who just negotiated our enslavement, right? And we all get 26,000 more years to mature and, out of our slavery. Now, that's after being enslaved. Now, the last round of slavery for us, just so everybody knows the reality, we've been enslaved. We have been with debt, right? The creation of this entire debt system. We have been drugged. We have been abused. We have been mind controlled. We have been used as basically as cattle. We've been used as food. Our children have been harvested for their organs. We've been killed and tortured to increase the amount of adrenaline in our blood, so that they can drain it off and consume the adrenochrome to extend their life while extinguishing ours. They have raped our men, women, and children. They have repeatedly tried to pervert the reality of historical records. That was what, and by the way, that was in agreement. Not unlike this moment we're in now. Not unlike this moment. It was a choice. And the reason why it was a choice is because people knew this was going on. They knew things like that were taking place. And instead of taking a stand, instead of snapping out of it and realizing their power, instead of showing and demonstrating the maturity, the leadership, the willingness to command the authority that is yours. Instead of doing that, we opted to stay silent, and our silence was our consent. And because of that, we had consented previously to these agreements. And these are real agreements, they are very official. So now those agreements have expired. And the reason why we're speaking out right now, the reason why Dan and I mean, the real reason why we're doing this, right, isn't just to debunk the GCR. It's to make a statement, a clear statement as loud as we can that we do not consent to these terms, right? So
Right. Well,
now what? Go ahead.
let me just add something. Now, is it not true though, since it comes down to an agreement that we're going to be enslaved again? Did it not come down to Kim making the decision and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And we're now just informing everyone and getting everyone up to speed with the decision that Kim already made not to be enslaved?
Well, okay, you know what? Yes, yes, on some level, yes. And Tui, right? I I don't. I got to be honest. As far as the power of that, you talk to Kim, she'd say they don't care. They don't they don't care about they don't care what we
They
said we
don't
do.
care. Yeah, they
You
don't
know,
care.
like people constantly. I will never forget that. I have lawyers who will contact me and tell me like, look, there's legalities. If we just handle it this way, we can get them to approve the to redeem the historical bonds. Right. I have a lawyer out of Spain who is convinced, telling me this, and a good man had done everything right, and he was convinced that his reputation was so solid that everyone knew when he came in, they could redeem what he had. And he had a deal with the White Dragon family, right? And he was going to Switzerland to meet with the White Dragon, right? Now, White Dragons, for people who don't know, that is the Austrians, right? The Austrian faction of the Cabal. So, lo and behold, all of these lawyers were involved with this exchange. The documentation was so tight. Everyone, all these lawyers, they knew it was going down. And I told them all. As a matter of fact, he was asking me to send certain things, and I had some of these bonds. I said, look, you can have it. And I gave it to him. I said, do whatever you want with it. I know it's already been redeemed. Right. I had the legal paperwork from Switzerland. It had been acknowledged. I had every possible thing. It was the tightest document. It had already been redeemed. He gets there. I mean, this guy spent months preparing this. He gets there in the face of the this group, and the White Dragon was the first one, by the way, who admitted public to all those lawyers, we do not have the codes. We've tried them. We cannot access the money. Right. That was a big deal. I mean, that was the best bet, the Cabal had. Like that, all these guys are all geared up with, to get their money. Now, that's the reality. Now, so from that standpoint, Kim, yes, she shut that down. But it's exactly what we're talking about. If we don't acknowledge that she's the sovereign, what does that mean, anyways? If these governments don't acknowledge that she's the sovereign, what good does it mean? It doesn't do us any good, because they turned around after that, and I thought we broke them, we got them, and they have tried to. I mean, they sent 100 Chinese assassins to kill her, just in January. They were coming out of the trees and flying from all over the place. I mean, like literally like a kung fu movie. At least that's how I imagine it. She didn't actually say that part, but there was 100 assassins who came to get her. So I mean, so what good does it do to have any laws or these things if it doesn't, if the bad guys don't abide by them, right? See, the good guys, we got to follow the rules, and we have to overcome impossible odds. But because the bad guys, if we don't, the bad guys will say, look, they didn't follow the rules. And you know what we would do? We'd say, you're right, we didn't. Because we abided by our contract. We've stayed slaves all this time. We've done everything.
They had immunity, right, from the rules.
Right. There was no karmic law even in effect until like 2014. So they could do whatever they wanted. So now what you're seeing, though, is the effects of karmic law, which is a real law, right? Like there was actually, I'm not sure exactly how this stuff works, but it was like written into their contract, I'm sure. So, but the karmic law didn't. There was no impact. They could do whatever they wanted. So now there's consequences. Now they're not sovereign, right? But I'll tell you what, we aren't either. Even though in the reality, in the spirit, you know what? as far as I'm concerned, that's all in the fairy tale until we do something about it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is get people to realize that we have the ability to bring these things into shape and form in reality in our own life here. And it's okay, it's really important to do, because now the reason why I'm mentioning this with the Kingdom of Manna is because, as a perfect example, their sovereignty has been rejected by the very sovereign who they acknowledged is the only sole sovereign monarch of this planet. But what they did is they went to a separate galactic force off planet. Now, when you do that, you immediately give your power over to something outside of yourself, to a
Right.
power you acknowledge they are above me.
They've
So
just
what they're
enslaved
doing,
themselves.
thank you. Now that's what I'm trying to say. So the Kingdom of Manna is a kingdom of nothing. They have already submitted themselves as slaves to other galactic beings. And now here's the problem. They have convinced people that Kim is fraudulent and they are real, right? They said, "Oh, she's been removed. She's not this." And I would tread lightly. All of them who think that they're so powerful. I'd be very careful with that, because and I hear other people trying to make those claims. That is not the case. And it's been demonstrated clearly over and over again. And none of them have the ability, the DNA, to access it. And her DNA is acknowledged by the church and state and every single treasury, intelligence agency, and government in the world. Every one of them. And so while the White Dragons and every other dragon family and the Rothschilds, formerly known as the Crown, and whatever else they are or think they are, none of them have any power to access the system anymore. So the option is very clearly, for the first time in our lives, we have someone in a position of power who is willing to give us sovereignty, true sovereignty, the ability to express ourselves creatively in all that we are, however we are, to be whatever we want to be, to provide the access to the substance and allow us to develop in a way that is in harmony with the natural scope of what we can be, which is anything, which is unlimited. That's why the quantum that Dan is talking about is so incredible, because you're not limited by anything, and you could be part of that. And it could be overwhelming, but you know what? Let's go with it. Let's all agree to go with it together, right? Make that decision up in your consciousness, because if you listen to Tui and you listen to all these things, our consciousness, our decision making, our words, our actions, they are all showing if we want to be a slave or if we want to be free. And it's really important. It's really important. I have lots of little chat rooms. I mean, some, a couple hundred people in different chat rooms all over the place, right? Probably have about 15 of them on WhatsApp, right? People that I update on things. But I have one group that's mine. It's my group, right? Like my team. And I've changed those groups. I've had different little groups, right? This one group. And I brought them in to my network, and I spent a year with them, explaining things to them, talking to them, telling them, giving them the world's cleanest intel before anybody else got it. And then here we are. We're at the moment where everything can change. And I finally launch all these things that I've been building up for all this time. All these ways that I've explained over and over and over again to people for years, by the way, and them more than anyone. And then I waited, and I launched it, and I'm like, I got this whole team. They know what to do. They're gonna go in there and set the example. You know what? Just out of 100 something, maybe two of them, three of them really took action. Now I'm like, what kind of message does that send to the universe, right? That all this effort was put into you, all this was given to you, and what did you do with it? What did you do with it? How did you demonstrate that you even appreciate what you saw or what you learned? Or did you learn anything? See, when we make decisions like that, when we're given all these gifts, all this evidence, and we reject it, believe me, the conclusion of the quantum system as well as the universe is the same as mine. You deserve to be slaves, which is tough. I mean, I'm just saying, but that would be the conclusion. So none of us deserve that. So let's make better decisions right now. Let's take action and really figure out how do we get involved. I used to say this all the time. I'd rather someone hear me speak and be angry and want to rebut everything I say than get off the call and be like, that was nice, and forget everything I said. Because when at least if I make you mad, you know what, you won't forget it, right? And in all likelihood, you'll hopefully be inspired to action. So
Well, I'm
that's
not
why.
mad, but I'm inspired to action.
There you go. That's much better, by the way. Much better.
Yeah, it's better. So, but you do have to take action. One of the actions is share the video. Be sure to subscribe, pound that like. The part of this is really the outreach. We need to get out to where everybody understands what's going on. Even if you've shared a video before from what we've been putting out, please share this one with what you found. Make a small comment about what you found was important about what you heard so far today, and just go ahead and put that information into your social platforms. Copy and paste the link. Use the share button if you must, and then be sure to again leave positive comments. I do go through the comments and I do respond. So, but if you need to contact me, my email is below. I prefer Telegram because I respond right away in there, and we can also talk verbally in Telegram. So please, if you want to participate, take some action. There we go. I hope that was inspiring in a positive way for everybody. So.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like it's really time where we should all be like, when you start to see things that are coming into reality all around us, right? It's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible time. It's there's all these things that we've just seen as kind of fairy tales, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm watching.
Well, you showed me that link for a museum that opened up with all of these strange creatures that were categorized by someone who had, was a taxidermist and had basically preserved all these beings. I mean, things that look sort of like a seahorse, but it's actually also like a mermaid. But it's small. Like, tall or something like that. But it had two arms and a head. Kind of looking more like the creature from the Black Lagoon or something like that. That was old black and white film. I remember that one. Kind of had that kind of look feel. But all these other creatures that have existed on the planet, and maybe they still do in some places, but they're outside of our normal areas. We stay on track. We have things called roads, and we don't like get off the road and start heading off into and over obstacles and make it into the mountains and over the lakes and find things that are outside of our normal areas. So we don't know what's out there or what's under the water, right there. And occasionally we see some things that got brought up, and we chalk it up to some kind of hoax, or said, oh, that's interesting, but we don't really consider that this is part of our reality and what's been here on the planet. We look at these statues and things where in the doorways. The doorways are 60 feet tall doorways. Why did they need them that tall? There's a particular reason they needed to have doorways that were that tall. Yeah, you need some headroom, but that's a little bit much if we're only 6 foot on average. But if you're 14 foot, that's probably still a bit of a reach. But if you're 38 feet tall, which there are skeletons for, there's plenty of pictures out there showing these very large, where the skull is as big as you couldn't wrap your arms around it, right?
I've seen when they're doing dig sites and the men are standing in the eye sockets. They're incredible. They're so big. Imagine an eye so big a grown man could stand in it.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
but this is like everywhere on the planet. It's not like one area that these things are at. But where are they now? Are they still here or are they not? You know, if are we the Lilliputians? If we stumbled into the wrong island, we'd find we're tiny as big as their toe or something. Well,
I think it has everything to do with the frequency, right? It's like being colorblind. Somebody who's been actually, there's a great product out there that kind of fixes this now, I guess, like glasses. And they were showing like these people that have been colorblind their whole life. Now, when you're colorblind, usually like you can see like one color or something, or like you can see,
Well, your blue
like
and the greens look the same, right? And the yellow,
okay, right.
something like
Yeah.
that. And reds and other than
I think there's like different versions. It's like one of the
different versions.
primaries is gone. So it's like my best friend was colorblind growing up, so he loved like mustard yellow and green, but that's really all you could see. You couldn't see many other colors. So that was kind of gray. You know, but so they put these glasses on these people, and they see the colors that are all around them, right? That we see, and they're like, and they're broken into tears, and they're like, this is what you always see. I mean, they couldn't even believe it. They couldn't believe it was real. So imagine you your whole life, we were living in the same space together, right? But what the world I saw and the world, somebody who's colorblind saw was totally different. And that's how I think all of this really is. We're in the same world together, and there's a frequency that you're gonna, if you want to vibrate at a certain frequency, and I know people always want to say a higher or lower or a higher frequency. you know a frequency is a frequency. You tune in to that frequency, and you can do that at will. To be honest, you can vibrate higher and then vibrate lower, just depending on who you're talking to or what you want to accomplish. Align yourself with that frequency, and you can use it as a truth serum. Kim tells me I can use it to fly because I'm always trying to get Kim to like download kung fu on me or something, but never get her to. But I keep asking. Um,
Maybe
but
you don't
I
have
mean,
a
but
need for it.
what's that?
Maybe you don't have a
Whatever.
need for it. Or if you got it, you'd have a need for it.
Well, I mean, Dan, honestly, I don't even know if I can talk to you anymore if you don't see that there's always a need for kung fu. How awesome would that be? What are you talking about? Like,
Well, yes, I guess when you're going to the grocery store, you might need it. Yes.
yeah, right, man.
Come
Kung
for
fu's
vegetables to watch out for. You never know when they're going to spring to action.
Listen, you need to go watch the new Karate Kid, right? With Will Smith's son in it, right? When he's just little, like in Jackie Chan. And he says, and there's this line, he goes, I see kung fu in everything. And I'm like, yes. I, you know, I'm
I
not that
just
into kung
flashed
fu. It was
on,
just cool.
I think it was uh, maybe what is it, Family Guy, right? And they did a kind of a flashback to Karate Kid, but it's a current day, and so he comes out. He's a young, that's it. He's, I don't know, 40 years old or 50, whatever, and he goes to Mr. Miyagi and says, "I have erectile dysfunction," and and it says, "Okay, son, I can fix that." You know,
I can fix anything.
well, wax on, wax off, I
It's
guess.
off, right? Howdy, chai. Hey.
They left that part off of the little clip, but
Yeah, thank goodness.
wax on,
That's funny.
wax off.
Wax off.
Yeah. So see, we digress. So yeah, well, uh, I, I'm sure that one day you'll get downloaded something.
I
Maybe
mean,
maybe it's how to fly a helicopter or how to
yeah,
fly maybe an interplanetary vehicle.
yeah. I'm sure something. I mean, I there's a lot of this stuff. I I suppose I don't know what it is. I don't really believe in labeling those things, but I know there's a lot of things that I know that I didn't know, 2 years ago, and it's not because I just studied because I don't read much, um, and but I talk to people, but a lot of it has just been given to me on some level, right? So I'm just trying to put it to use.
That
But
Iron Mountain report is hairy to get through. Reading that,
like I said, I just I looked at that thing and I just kind of caught it, and then all of a sudden I pretty much knew what it was about, and I went dissected it a little bit. I keep trying to get somebody else to go through it and dissect it more thoroughly than I did, but I went through it enough to see like, wow, this is everything that's happening now, right?
yeah.
But I don't know. It's like everybody just kind of is numb to it. Like that can't be real. It's like kinda,
It could be a movie.
or it could be real life that we're living right now. Like literally, yeah. No, but
Yeah,
it could be a movie. And actually, matter of fact, you know what? I've got a team that's working on launching a network. And I told them about what you're doing with your site, and I'm like, we're going to find a way to get the truth out there, right? Like, and really, like,
yeah,
put a solid group out there that's promoting the truth. I know Thomas is definitely Thomas Williams is very big on this. He's always talking about like you got to take the media down. I mean, there's such a monster in the way they control the narrative, right? The message,
yeah.
and they're so used to lying because they're.
Yeah.
It's like if anyone's ever seen the
It's not even it's it's not even that they're lying. It's just that they are scripted. That they only repeat what they're given, right? And they don't go off script. And that's why they all say exactly the same thing, word for word, and they'll go to channel. But that's, the interesting thing though is there is the attack that's happening right now, the counter to them through QAnon, and that is, the Great Awakening, the things that are happening now that we have a new Attorney General, and the stuff that is going to be coming out, is to the point where they're suing Twitter, and they're going, and all the Facebook executives are dumping their stock, and they're run, they're going to be running off to New Zealand, you know, um, they are losing, right? The people are not turning to them completely, and they're turning away from them mostly. Hashtag walk away. You get Democrats walking away from being Democrats. So this, I don't agree with this. Get out. So, uh, but this, like programs like this, when we're telling people this information, we ask you to go out and spread it. And if it's upon you to go ahead and do your own conversation, please do. Start putting this out on YouTube. We overwhelm them, and eventually they are irrelevant, and to the point where they literally disappear. I also found it interesting that Obama put into place a executive order that says, in the time of a national emergency, which we are under, the Congress tried to rule it out, right? Why do they try to make an effort to rule out the national emergency, right?
I
That
know.
Trump put that out there, the wall, national emergency. Everybody knows we're under a national emergency. All the other ones for swine flu, national emergency that Obama did, nobody knew you were under a national emergency. Now everybody knows that you're under a national emergency. So is there context now for him to act as though there's a national emergency? So if a national emergency is that Obama put in place, the fact that that the president can take over all the social media platforms, I bet they
Yeah.
didn't mean that for Trump to be able to take over the social media platforms. But
No.
I don't think that Trump's going to rescind that. I think he's going to use that tool that they were going to be using against us and use it for us. And so I think that's what I see with the alignment that's happening is the alignment of those forces that need to be in place for the takeover of the social media.
Yeah. I mean, you'd want if you knew the government could be trusted, right, and they were really a government of the people, technically, the government kind of should be in control of that anyways, right? Because the people should be in control of if it's just a business or whatever. But if it's used as a platform to send out messages, and that's a platform that is very effective in getting, there's more news that gets out through Twitter than the mainstream media. I mean, and I remember, before Trump's presidency, they were asking questions on Bloomberg like, how is Twitter staying in business? They're like, how is it even? They couldn't understand it. And it wasn't doing great. They were trying to look for other ways to make money and all types of things. Trump completely revived Twitter. If they were looking at it from just a business standpoint, there are more people on Twitter now. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I guarantee you it's a huge increase because it's used so much more now than it ever was by anybody. I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. I never thought of tweeting. Right, and I had an account for. It's like never even crossed my mind to ever interact. But now I interact with it. I would still sparingly, but I do. I post things to it. I have a few followers there, but I don't really. I haven't absorbed. Where I try to make it part because there's a deterrent to me because I know that it's. I don't want to support something that I know is being used against me.
Yeah.
Even Facebook. I do it because I've got 5,000 people connected to me. I'm maxed out there, right? But so I try to get the word out. But am I actually getting the word out? I think it's being muted. I mean, normally when I post things there, I would get a slew of comments. Normally, right? And if I'd ask something, I get you know I I'd ask a question and then 300-400 comments. Now there's nothing. Now,
Oh yeah.
kind of unusual because I know the same people that follow me are on are or that are watching. If I go and look through there, I recognize the names. Not everyone. There's a lot of new people, but I recognize some of those names. So these are the same people that would have left me comments. But I also know that it's like one of the things that I was just listening to last night was they were talking about the social media and things, the lawsuits that are coming, and so you would be able to see your own post, right? But other people that are connected to you that would normally see your post no longer see your post. So you think you posted, but nobody sees it. So did you post? So this kind of
Right.
distortion, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should go to Gab and just focus on just Gab. But there's not it's good, but it's not super big, right?
Right. It's not the same.
Yeah, so it's not the same, and so, but would I actually be getting more than I would on, say, Facebook or on Twitter? Hard to know, but so if I had a staff, I'd make sure they would post it everywhere and do every angle. Um, anyway, I did see that this social media storm is brewing, where the lawsuits are now filed, and now evidence was gathered. It was shown through Trump's tweet, and the one of the posters was called Q, and the other was Anon. Was right underneath Trump's tweet at the top, where normally all the positive stuff is pushed down, 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 and all the trolls are at the top of Trump's tweets. How is that every single time? So Q made a post that said, look, we're at the top. And then they were pushed down. How did that happen? Right? With the ones that were below, they went to the top. How did that happen? That's not supposed to be able to happen. But then they pushed it right back up. The Q and the Anon posts were pushed right back up to the top. And they came in and they pushed it down again. So this back and forth is evidence to prove that Twitter is rigging it. And so they've just cut their own throat in the face of a lawsuit, right? Yeah, there's the evidence right there, right on the president of the United States, POTUS's Twitter account. Boom. They cut their own throat. And of course, they also cut off the social media manager for Trump. They banned him from Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, things like that. Like, how do you do that? I mean, how can you ban the president, like chief of social media?
Yeah,
like,
and on his own Twitter account for responding to people that left comments on his own Twitter feed. So he can't leave comments on the people that commented.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, so now they're caught with their pants down, right, and they're stumbling and falling down the stairs, and that's the spectacle that we're currently watching with popcorn.
Well, but you know what's funny is I turned around and I got a message from, I mean, not a message, but there was a tweet on my feed, and it said it was talking about how Putin had, locked down some aspect of the mainstream media or social media, right? And was hindering, what they considered to be the freedom of speech. And this guy said, and that's what Trump's doing too. And if he has his way, it's like, really? I mean, Trump is like he's like, say what you want. He doesn't, he doesn't mind defending himself and saying whatever he wants. Like, he certainly doesn't want to be censored. He doesn't want anybody else to be censored either. Like, that
Right.
logic to me, it's like they even go after him for things that are just so ridiculous. It's like, like, how can anyone take you seriously when you say something like that? But there's a bunch of people that don't really pay attention to what's going on on the bigger picture, and because of that, they're then deceived, right? Now that is my concern as far as, um, I know for a fact that, well, I believe for a fact that what he's saying is absolutely right when he says, look, everything will happen. We've already won, and and it all turns out in the end. And
Oh,
I agree with that.
just to interrupt for a second, I just sent Tui the link. I just realized we're an hour and 20 minutes in, so I usually try to send it after the first hour. But anyway, so Tui now has the link. He can join in at any time. So,
Okay, cool.
um, and anyone else do you think may be coming on?
I'm gonna. Thomas probably just finished up his show. I'm gonna hit him up to see if he wants to either come on tonight or tomorrow night. See if
Okay.
he's got time. But that might be tomorrow night.
Okay.
But anyways, my point is that, so in that world of things, right, that we're doing, there's you know, it's in harmony with what Tui's saying, right? Yes, we're counting on that to happen, and we trust it will. But that does actually take action, right? Because energy is what moves us, right, and moves our behavior and moves our thoughts. And so it's in believing that our attitude, our actions should also recognize there's still a very real, um, enemy, so to speak, that we're dealing with, right? So while that is true, it still requires us to take action that demonstrates we believe that and know it. And I in my and now you have Tui that stepped up and he saw that the Kingdom of Manna was false, right?
Right.
But you know what? There's other chiefs and there's other people that, and I got reports today that they are deceived by the Kingdom of Manna. And I don't know if that includes those chiefs, but it definitely includes other countries, right, who believe that the Kingdom of Manna is going to be the one. So because that discrepancy, I wanted to make sure, even though I told you guys yesterday I didn't want to necessarily put that stuff out,
Right.
but today I feel differently about it, that we have to bring it out because we have to make that clear to anybody that's listening, any government that might be listening, any group that might be aware, because our freedom does depend on that recognition, and we don't want them deceived and being tricked into slavery just because a rogue group who tried to essentially steal all the assets of the world has now subjected themselves to a different galactic group that's lying to them, you know? So I just wanted to make that clear. Hopefully it was. I feel like I talked a lot and
Yeah,
not sure if it was clear.
I think it's clear, but it's good that we repeat it because other people coming into it will need to hear it a few times to get it. So, if we are repeating ourselves, so please forgive us because we have to say it, and every time where we say something, it's said a little bit differently so that people hear it a little bit differently, and it constructs to them more of a picture of what we're talking about. It's part of communication. So now, just as a little side note, when we first did our first show, there was the Kingdom of Manna that had basically put up information on our comment section below the video,
Mm. Yeah.
and I looked at it and I said I went to the website and it didn't feel right, and I said I just had an instinct to say there's something about this, and I kind of ignored it and I didn't even say anything to you about it, but then it popped up again. And that's when I think I mentioned to you. I said, "What is the Kingdom of Manna?" Because and so it's obvious that they know about this program and that they're aware of the outreach that we're doing. So their conversation about this. What if they came on and presented their case?
Yeah.
You know, that, you don't hide in the comment section.
Right.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Don't. So then go over the history and say where are things. If you want to represent that you are now interfacing with another galactic race, and so can you answer the question? Are you now beholden to them for helping you? Have you now agreed to another round of enslavement? So it's a good question to answer. So I hope you have an answer if you come on.
Yeah.
Hey, hi, Tank.
Hey, what's up, Tui?
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Tui,
Hope you guys are doing good.
doing good. When I hear your name, though, Tui, I want to say Tui, 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 Tui.
Yeah. Tui, Tui means
Tui.
Tui. Yes, Tui means chief in my language.
Ah, okay.
So if you or chief or king, so if you are a chief or a king in a place, then you'll be called Tui, and then the name of the place. So Tui China or Tui Philippines. That means he's the king of the Philippines.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here
so
in the Philippines, it's Datu.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they wanted to make me Datu, and I said, "What am I Datu of?"
yeah. So over here it's Ratu,
Ah,
Ratu.
okay. So
Mhm.
interesting. But yeah, I was working with the group here, which is again, as I was saying before, there's a group of 110 tribes that were put together to represent the tribal indigenous people here in the Philippines, and they had them register with the Philippine government, which and I was pointing out, so you then became under the Philippine government. And I think that the Philippine government under Ramos had done that for the purpose of containing them, because in the Constitution of the Philippines it recognizes the indigenous people as sovereign. But if they now register under the Philippine government, they are then turning over their sovereignty at that point. And there's been no, and they also, in the agreement of this, they were supposed to receive funds, these 110 tribes, of which they never did. They never got these funds given to them. So, and it was, I would say null and void action. anyway, I think that they were establishing themselves and pulling themselves out of that agreement, but I don't know how far they got. So, but yeah, they wanted to make me Datu, and I said, "What am I Datu of?" You know, they said, "Well, make me the ambassador." I said, "Okay, well, we can talk about that. What does that mean? You know, how am I helping as an ambassador?" So anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know the tribes there in the Philippines and all over the place over there in Cambodia, in Thailand, Indonesia. I know the what do you call it in our language, the chiefly tribes there, the tribes of the Maharaja, and so we're just part of the same collective that has this agreement. And I know they were one time they were trustees, especially the royal in those countries, in China and in Japan, and so they were given the responsibility of trustees to the trust, and so all these times, and it went all over the world, right up to India and up to Europe, and during the time of Muhammad, it was given to Muhammad. During the time, like through the Vatican, of course, and so it's part of our history, and it's one big part of the hidden history that people are finding out now. And so, like I said yesterday about like that clock that the whole planet is like a clock, and it has there's a space in time where this it's like how the sun rises and then sets and then go around the planet, or round and round the circle. That's how the DNA and all the royals or the sovereigns that are chosen through time, through thousands and thousands of cycles of years. And then, like I said, just a few hundred years ago, the energy was supposed to come to the United States. And so the Freemasons, they understand this, and they came over to the new land, and they wanted to harvest that energy, and that's how they prepare the place, and they try to destroy the native tribes there, and then they try and control the energy. So this is, well, it's all just old knowledge of how the world works, and some of the high royals, they understand this, and they know that I mean, if you see all the problems right now in the US, it just shows that time has changed, and that's how the people are just reacting to these changes. And the system that used to be very strong in the past 10, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years in the US, it's now almost breaking down to a point where people, like they're just verbally fighting against each other, like valuing all those illusions that not really real. And like they can even kill people or kill each other just because of it. But those is breaking down. The United States president used to be the most respected person in the US, but now it's like it's almost changing, because it just shows that that's how the time works, and that's how like in the old days, how a monarch changes changes flags, or there's a new title on the planet. So this is why Kim was prepared, and she was being prepared by the people that already knew this, and they know, because this is like common knowledge to all the chiefs. Even here in Fiji, we know that there'll be a time that comes, and we know it's gonna be the Za Confederacy, and then we are the counterpart of it, the Ra Confederacy. And so this is one of it's called the family of Ra. And so it's almost like a clock. You have an hour hand, and then you have a minute hand. And then these were groups. These were happened all over. So every thousands of years, they were given that chance. So for the past 500 years, they understand this, and they want every time, everywhere they know that this moment will come, and this time they will come here. And this also happens in how how you have, for example, like Jesus. Before Jesus, there was 2,000 or 4,000 years ago, there was someone just like him, but in a different gateway. And then before that, another someone just like him in a different gateway. And so it's a cycle of how the souls on the planet and how everything works. It's quite it's like I said, it's a very advanced technology. It will take people to actually sit down and start to realize that everything it's working as it's a clock. It's like I said, it works together like a very, very advanced machine, and we are part of it. It's the most advanced technology in the world, and it will take years to come for people to understand it. And like we are thankful that I'm thankful. I'm talking about the quantum system, and you guys are talking like like Tank is actually there with Kim using it, and that's really, really like people don't see that, but it's really, really profound. They have the most advanced technology in the universe, in the planet, and people they don't understand what's going on, and they're looking to all these other kind of energies to try and see and try to know. I mean, try to say that these are the free energies, and all this will. I was like what I was saying yesterday. When the time comes, we'll be able to harness that technology. We'll be able to truly be free and realize that the most powerful thing is just inside of us, and that's the spiritual energy that is in everyone. So I just want to put it out as an input to what you guys are discussing today, and to the like the good news about how Kim has successfully launched the quantum system, and the new monetary system that she's decided to actually use. And like I said, she's doing her role, and everyone is doing theirs, and that's why I join you, and that's like I try to tell you and try and show you the role that I play to be able to like get that physical alignment, or the spiritual alignment, and so to like just to let people know that these are not different, they're just the same. It's just everything coming, so everything that was different coming and becoming one, and that's like that's our role, and I'm thankful for this opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And let me ask you: do you think that we're on the second hand on this show, on the world clock?
Oh, so if I'm talking,
as we're moving pretty fast, second by second.
So Kim's role, if you talk about it in that way, so it's much easier to understand. That's why I put it in a clock sense, because you cannot put this into words, because it's part of what the experience is. It's part of how everything works together, and so that's the most two-dimensionally you can understand. Because this is a multi-dimensional topic that I'm trying to put into words, and it's really complicated. But I will let your intuition, and you will be able to figure it out on your own, because you have the same energy that's in the quantum system, and you'll be able to just think through your experience and whatever you've learned in this life, and you'll be able to understand that like what I'm saying is like I'm saying something that even the words that are coming out of my mouth is not enough to explain it, but you will be able to fill in the blanks with your intuition and understand that how advanced the technology that I'm trying to talk about. Yeah, so just like we can talk over and over and more, and it will become clear. Because I heard you guys were talking about in a few of your last show. I heard that you guys were talking about the stars and astrology, and you guys were not astrology. You're talking about how you can choose people that have certain characteristics to be able to have a certain kind of job in this new change, and they people like you try and like see them, these people, they work well together, and you try and you try and use that movie, Divergence, and that movie, yeah, you guys were talking about that. No, yeah, but we have that already. It's already here. That's why we have the top tribes being separated into the top tribes. So we have the head.
Are you saying that we're divergent?
No, I'm talking about that, the point, the idea in that movie, because they had a certain way of choosing people that is suitable for a certain kind of work that is, like that is the expression of their DNA, and that's what astrology is really.
These are the warriors. Yes.
Yeah, something like that, yeah, those kind of thing, and so. These were deep knowledge that that how the 12 tribes actually exist. When I said the 12 tribes, there's 12 tribes all over the planet, and in each 12 tribe they have all these different. You'll have, for example, we'll talk about India. You'll have the Brahmin, and you'll have the rulers and the leaders, and you have those people, the merchants, the skilled workers, and then you have the unskilled workers, and then you have the untouchable down below. And this is part of those kind of um, getting people together or sorting people in.
I think they picked the bad name.
Bad name.
Untouchable. Yeah, if I was choosing our class title, I wouldn't say, let's call us the Untouchables.
It means something. It means something totally different in their language. But when you try to translate it into English, that's what's almost equivalent to it, untouchables. But it really means the children, the woman, the almost like the in societies, like the lowest, not because they are valued lowest. No, it's just because they are not involved in the if, for example, in India, in commerce, in working, they don't have that value of in commerce, and so they call them that because of the value that they put out of silver and gold. So these people are almost like free.
Don't associate with them because there's no value.
Yeah, no, yeah, but in the beginning of the 12 tribes, because when the people were like in a small number, everyone had value, everyone. And the problem was when money came in, and it changed everything. And now people turning like into billions, and then like these billions of like millions of people that are the Brahmin, that million of people that are the military and the leaders, millions of people, and they end up more segregated, more separated. And so just like how you have it in Philippines and in Thailand and in China and in Japan, now they're all separated countries, but they were one 12 tribes, and they have their own role in the 12 tribes. One tribe, just like how you have in the Bible, how before even the Israelites were formed in the times of Abraham, Abraham was giving his tithe to the king of Salem, that is Melchizedek. Because in the 12 tribes, Abraham is part of the 12 tribes that Zalem is actually because he's from Ur, and so all those places, that's one 12 tribe, and so they know their role, and they know who's the Melchizedek, or the we call it in our language the Sau. And so from my side, from here in Fiji, I come from the family of Sau, and everyone in the 12 tribes, they give us the 10th of their whatever they have from from what they plant or from the money. And so that's what our top. So it's all over the planet. It was designed in that way, and these tribes were organized in a way because that in ages, and the way astrology works is the time that you are born, you'll have certain characteristics to be able to in your life, and they understand this, and the setting of the stars and all this. These are all like in those days are common knowledge, and so people were sorted according to when they were born, according to the 4 seasons, and because they will have certain kind of characteristics, and that's how they were like separated into these 12 tribes, and this is also how the soul works on the planet. And so like I said, it's a very advanced technology, and but we are all just one, playing a different whole, just one being, having different roles and in different times. That yeah. So this time, that's we know our role, like as the chiefs here in Fiji and the elders. We know what Fiji represents, to the just not to Fiji itself, but to the Pacific, and hopefully in the future to the whole world, to be able to set that example. And so reaching out to you and be able to express that, it's really an honor, and really it's really a pleasure, and really also a blessing for me to be able to let you know, and to let people that are listening, and just to set a light, or just give them an idea of the changes that are happening now. And so like it took us those past few days to be able to be talking about it, and the role of so what sovereignty means to everyone on the planet. And so if we can actually do that, and we highlight that in this message, we are doing our part. So once again, thank you so much, Dan, and
Well, thank you. Well, we need you to express this from the standpoint of an understanding that we don't have, right? If someone talks about being sovereign in today's world, especially the sovereignty movement or patriot movement, they have an idea of what it means, but for them, it really means they can't be taxed. I mean, and based.
Oh, that's the truth. You're right. Most people have gone to great lengths so that they can just be like, screw you to the government. Yeah.
that's it.
And it's like an end result, right? Is you can't be taxed, because if you're
Yes.
sovereign, there's no one above you, right? To tax, so who are you giving it to, right? So even in the system, it's a voluntary system that you're, with a gun pointed at your head, right? So you're still volunteering, because in practice you're supposed to be sovereign and choose to donate your funds. But people don't know what sovereignty is, and so having the conversation with you, Tui, is so important, because it needs to resonate in people to understand that it's not about taxes, right? And it's like one of the small results that happens of that, and it's not even consequential. The idea of what sovereignty is that you're responsible for yourself, right, and the actions that you're taking, and how you interface with the world, and how you feel about where we're all going. It's all about taking responsibility. And a little other side note, because let's talk about responsibility. The other side is respect. Yeah, you always think of a monarch as having respect, right? So these are things that I've thought about in the past, but how to represent them to people, other than having a conversation and starting to have people think about it. And so it's so important to have your perspective on sovereignty, because you've been in it, on what and how to represent it and how it feels. And that's what everyone gets from having this conversation, is to have that understanding of sovereignty. Maybe our next program should be called Sovereignty. Become a king. I don't know.
Become a king.
Yeah, how to become a king. So lesson 1.
Well, what I think is a little bit of a challenge to really comprehend, and I'm not entirely sure based on the current system, I'm not sure how it works, is a caste system, right? So a caste system becomes very ugly when it comes down to what you're able to do, right? Now, if it's I guess it's some kind of sovereign caste system where, people are, free, and they're able to pursue whatever it is they want to do. But traditionally in a caste system, it's like, like Tui said, like you have the merchant caste, right? They're trained and raised to be merchants and value those things. And you have a royal caste, and they're trained to act royal. And then you have whatever the other castes are, right? Whatever's below that or above that, I don't know. But real sovereignty would have to include the option to be whatever it is that you think you can be or what is most natural to you. So that's where it's a little bit of a challenge, that how people are born, and kind of lumping them together. I do understand, it kind of goes back to the soul contract, right? When someone has a soul contract, and the idea is that you chose where you'd be born and what place and time, and that kind of says, like, so you're born with a Leo moon, and that means something, and I don't know what, you're Gemini, it means that you're gonna be charged to speak, and different things like that. And these are all decisions that we, the idea is that we kind of made these decisions to come into a body at that time. But I also think that if you're going to be sovereign, part of that has to be that you can choose something else, and it might not be in agreement with your soul contract, but that's your sovereign right. It doesn't mean it's a good choice, but that might be your sovereign right. Because part of part of figuring this thing out is going through whatever the experiences are that you need to go through to learn whatever it is that you came here to learn, or to experience whatever it is that you committed to. And that contract is only with you and source. So, if all other contracts are void in a sovereign world, except for the one that you made with, your creator. So I think that's important to kind of define those things, because freedom has to include our freedom of our will, to be whatever it is that we, believe or are drawn to be.
Well, I was married to an Indian woman for 18 years and spent a lot of time in India. I've experienced, the caste system, even though that was, dissolved in a essence in the government, it still existed. And in that, the untouchables, or the other castes, those groupings, it didn't seem to be a fair situation. And even in that movie Divergent, the ruling class, the governing class, right? The planning class, they made a plan to take over all the others. So,
Right.
if you are having a caste system, it has to be on the side of, say, sovereignty. Because you yeah, if you're focused on your work, whether you are a farmer and that's where you put your efforts, or you're an engineer and that's where you put your efforts, or you're a teacher and that's where you put your efforts, those are classes. But the one should not be more important than the other. I'll just throw artist into that as well, because that's always one that's an untouchable class in today's world. They're the untouchables, right? So these have to be set outside of what sovereignty is in regards to the importance, I think.
That's true. That's the reason why I try to explain the past history of these 26,000 years, because that's the lesson that we had to learn as a collective, and we had to arrange it in such a way that when this time comes, we already know all these the lessons that we've learned, and just like what Tanki said, and the sovereignty is within you. And if you don't understand the lesson that you've that we've been learning as tribes and all that, and like we like you, and now that we know all these things, all that, and now we know exactly what to do, and we can perfectly and perfect the whole change that we have in front of us. And so I was talking about that because, like I said, there are big things that I'm trying to explain first before I come to the point. The point is that this time is different. This time, sovereignty goes to every single one, every person, and their role depends on the gift that is within them, and how to actually express that. And so, but in order to be able to know that perfectly, we just need to understand that in the past they did all those things because that's how they run the slavery system, and that's how they actually they did it, and they did that in an organized way where people they're walking, they're doing that, and that's why I explain all that. And so to be able to understand that, you'll be able to understand what sovereignty really is now for this new change that what Kim is actually representing, and what the Manna World Holding Trust is trying to do as its role. And so I know these are very important history that people now need to understand and fully understand that it's not as simple as just like being free from the law, because it's part of the DNA. All these thousands of years, all these programmings of what you are, only now that you know that you're the only one that can change it, and you're the only one that you can free yourself from it. And so the system, like I said, it's multidimensional. It's not just as simple as just running the laws and it grows from one country to another. The whole planet agreed to the old system, and so I'm thankful that we are now in a new time where we can do like we can change, and we can just like what I'm trying to do now, and let everyone know.
Learn from our history, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
in regards to a class, there's nothing wrong with classifying and saying, well, our farmers are all over here. We need to talk to them. We need to interface because they're very important, right? Here's our engineers. They're over here. They're very important. So these classes are all very important, and they have to be all treated in an equal way.
But this time it's totally like what Tank is saying. It's like everyone can choose whatever she wants to be, and everyone can understand, like, can do that, and freely. Everyone will given the chance to be able to do that.
You know that I'm an engineer, and I'm a farmer, and I'm a priest, and I love broadcasts, right?
No, you're the first example of that. Of that example. You're the first one to to prove that anyone can do anything they want to do. Anyone can do anything they want to be. The creative energy within them can be expressed in any way they choose to be. So all we'll do now is just try and organize an environment where that can be actually catered, and that can actually be improved, not just improved, but nurtured. And then
caste systems where you were locked in, you were not allowed to, right? Once you're there, you're that. And then it became about, especially in India, it became about the color of your skin.
Yes.
You became a certain caste. And so,
you can't even intermarriage, or you can't even you can even, if you're a merchant or if you're a tailor, you'll always be a tailor. Your children will be a tailor, and your children's children will become tailors, and you'll always guide them up. Hey, when you teach them at home, okay, you are a tailor. You stay true to your tailor, and then But now we learn from all these things. We learn from so much more, and people understand now. All the secret about how the law and all this system that works. And now
I think that there was a natural inclination for things to happen where families of, say, all the textile families would intermarry with one another, right?
Yes.
Dominance.
And so
they organized themselves into these classes, which also for defense and offensive reasons, right?
Yeah.
But there was a greed factor behind it. And
yes.
I may be wrong, but it was just my
that's totally right. Just like, for example, here in Fiji, I was explaining how the caste system that came to Fiji were part of the untouchable. So when they came to Fiji, they couldn't join the military. They couldn't they couldn't work as militants, or if they do not fight, because it's not from where they come from. It's not what you can say. It's not their caste, because they have their own caste system in India that are military, and the whole Sikh and the religion, what they eat. So we had a problem. So and they were leading. When they were schooling, they get because this was their chance. They come to a new place where they can actually start anew, and they were able to reach a certain stage where they become leaders in the country, like ministers of government ministries, and then they end up almost becoming prime ministers. And that's why we had coups, because of they don't want to join the military, but they want to take the lead in the country, in the government. And so, if, the native people, they say, hey, we went to the first World War, we went to the Second World War, and none of them went to it. And you guys want to want to lead the country. This is if you that's why there was a coup and 3 coups that happened. And so as a nation, we are learning as a nation, and we've learned, like I said, the lessons that has to be learned has been learned, and we've matured as a nation, and we are able to be able to create a new future in front of us. And that's why I'm talking with you. And so this just in that explanation, that's what I was trying to explain. The past is a past of slavery, and this future is a future of sovereignty. And so, as much as like what you said, there's maybe a show we just talk about sovereignty. There's so much more to just taxes and all that. What sovereignty and what sovereignty really means, and to understand that God is in you, and God is a source of life that is you, and you are no different from that. That's why you're sovereign, and it can take. That's what the whole Bible is all about. It's trying to tell you that you are sovereign, that you are sons and daughters of the living God. But people can only see. Slaves will always see what a slave can see. And so it's about time for people to actually open up their spiritual eye and to understand the power within them. And Kim and the team and Tank, and you're part of that lesson that will complete the learning. So I'm thankful.
Hey, Tui, I was thinking about this when you mentioned the Bible, because there's always things that people kind of take out of context, or they just believe they say one thing when, because their pastor said so, and they don't really question it. But, I was thinking about this, that in the Bible, in like John 17:3, the way it normally reads, the way it's supposed to read is, this is life eternal. Right? And it says this, that's how it starts out. Now, you'd think that would be the most important scripture in the Bible that everyone would always know. This is life eternal. And then it says that they might know that thou only art the true El, right? So in other words, it's saying that you are. Now, the way it's interpreted is that someone outside of themselves, but it's not. It's talking about that you are the one, and you're the same one, the one with God. That's what you are, right within yourself, and that is life eternal. When you realize that, you can be conscious of your that you are like just a fractal, just a sourceling, my friend says, of God, of that same ultimate source, and that is what connects us all. And in that is exactly what you're talking about, and I appreciate it. That's why I kept kind of prompting you, because I didn't want people to get confused by a caste system. That in reality, the freedom, the things that make us free, are the same things that unify us. So our individual characteristics, our unique path, our individual talents, our personal things that we like, whatever that is, those things should not be what divides us. In fact, our right to be that and to be ourselves and to express ourselves with all the gifts and all the beauty that we've been imbued with is what we should all be willing to fight for someone else to have the same right? We should all be willing to stand together on that. Like, no, I want to be free. And because I want to be free, I'm willing to stand with you so you can be free. Because I know, if you're not free, I'm not free. Because even for in all these cultures that had slaves, they weren't free either. They were bound by something. And that's the thing that kind of disrupts things. Our differences are what bind. That really, our differences are what makes the expression of humanity so magnificent, so incredible, so powerful.
So I just I muted Tui because it was cutting your mic. So
Oh, thank you.
I think he had a child that was wanting attention. I do think that Tui must have. I know what he had for dinner last night. He had rooster stew.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
No, you're okay.
So did you have rooster stew yesterday? Because we haven't heard the rooster.
No. They are my family, so I don't eat them.
Oh, okay. Oh, so are you vegetarian?
I can eat fish.
Eat fish. Okay, that's interesting. So, so you have no fish in the family. Okay, got it.
As long as they're not family, you can eat them.
Yeah.
I wondered about that. Actually, I feel better knowing we can eat fish.
You know, I had to, you know, that there've been times when I've helped people, and almost like on a spiritual. I was put into a spiritual place of helping someone. There was a woman that I met at a swimming pool, right? And she had just got over or kicked out of the hospital. She's trying to build back up her muscles, and she had almost got to a point where her bones were so brittle from being a vegan since the time of 16 years old, that you know the doctors were ordering her to eat meat, to have at least fish, okay? And otherwise she would literally die because of the particular enzyme that her body needs. She could not get from plants, and she would literally killing herself. So for 15 years, she's already a vegan and very strict and very much work exercise fanatic. And she happened to be a follower of a Indian guru, uh, and um, and I literally had gone to the ashram of this Indian guru, the months before. A girl that I was dating was a devotee of her, and so I had gone to it, and so I went, spent time in other ashrams. Even in India, I spent time in Sai Baba's ashram in Puttaparthi, and but the whole thing when I was there met her, I had a particular knowledge of something that I was compelled to tell her, which was that fish feel no pain. They don't have any pain receptors. And I really felt overwhelmed that my whole point to meet her was to tell her that one thing. Later, she ended up eating salmon with the knowledge that she wasn't having pain put on the onto the fish because they don't feel pain. In nature, if they had pain, if their number one problem as being a fish is being eaten by another fish. And if they felt pain, they would go into shock when they were being eaten. But without pain, they're able to scurry away. So, anyway, that was just a little side note about that. But anyway, I felt that was interesting. That Tui he eats fish. So it's because I think that is the source of
Yes.
protein.
Sorry. For us here, we have like fish. We understand like how you have whales, dolphins, and sharks. These are the fish that we don't eat because they are sentient. They are like people. If you eat one of them, then you will be eating one of like a family member of that fish. But there are fish that have soul minds, like half minds, that have like bees, like you have in the sea that you see all these schools of fish together, and if you take one of them, the whole one is not affected because they have a different soul awareness, and so out of them they have together. So these were the ones that you have to try and ask and to be able to, and then you ask them, and then you can actually take and thank them for for life, for sustaining your life, and you have to do that first before actually taking that and then taking what you need from them. And so it's almost like you picking up fruit from a plant. And but if you take sentient beings like sharks, this affects the family, because they are just family, just like us here on the planet. So you wouldn't like it if one of the family members gets, because they are aware. And so dolphins and all these, they have that. And if you take, for example, a whale, if you take one of the whale, the mother will always be looking for it, because they are sentient beings. And or even a dolphin, if you take a small baby of it, they will always, even the sharks, if you take one of the sharks, you have to be weary when you come to when a person comes there to the reef, because they know exactly, they know how, they're aware just like us. You'll feel that when you're going to sea, and you'll feel the sovereignty when you come there. And so, we have to respect it, and we take only from, and we don't make noise in the reef, especially from where I come from. When you go to the reef, you have to respect the sovereignty of the sharks, and especially the sharks, because they are sovereign in the reef. If you make noise, or if you destroy something there, they will come to you and they will attack you. And so a lot of people don't realize that at sea, because it works like that. And so these are, some of the wisdoms that people can actually learn once these changes comes in, and they will learn that it doesn't exist only on land. It exists only, not only on animals, but also in the fish. And so, yeah, so we eat the fish but if we sell the fish, then we lose that connection, because we are valuing their their love out of something outside of us. And so it's a very big lesson now. All of us here, even the chiefs, they recognize it, because for past 20, 40 years now, or even 100 years, the fishing industry here has actually taken, so much out of our out of the sea, or our golden poly, we call it golden poly. And so, to them, I told them, see, you've lost all these wealth of the sea that you used to have before, because you sold it, and that's your fault. And if Kim and the team, what they're doing now, will be able to make us be able to get that back, get that sovereignty back. And like, that's what we are planning right now, to be able to do that, and to regenerate our relationship with the sea, and regenerate the population of our fish in the different part of the country, because we have special fish for only special islands. They can't go anywhere else but there. And so we have to regenerate that, and we have to learn and teach the younger generation to take care of that. So yeah, so this change is, it's really, everyone has to take part and actually be part of it. Yeah, so I eat fish, only those, not the sentient ones.
Yeah, I think that's a
Not,
good
not,
rule. Don't eat any sentient beings.
yeah,
That's a good rule.
yeah, it's a form of cannibalism. It's a sentient cannibalism.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want it done to you, so
Yes, I definitely don't want that done to me. I definitely don't want that done to me.
So when we come to visit Tui, we're family, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like, don't touch him on the head, though. Don't touch him on the head, because you will be dinner. You will be dinner.
Sorry.
That's great. Well,
You know, I had an off-color joke. I was going to leave that one alone, so we'll just keep going.
Yeah, I gotta hold that back.
Hold that. It's a family
What?
book. I got about.
So Tui, did you hear what I was talking about with I referred to the conversation that we had last night after the call.
Yes. Yes. I heard about. Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, does that make sense? Is that in line with what I was saying, with what your understanding as well? Because
Yes.
because I think that's important. I really think that's important in this moment we're in. That what you're doing, what you've done essentially, right? Is, I mean, really, and it's obvious, to be quite honest, in my opinion. that it's established a connection, with these worlds, right? I mean, literally, we're from New York to the Philippines to Fiji right now, right? Um, and I think it's so important to kind of recognize the energetic connection that creates, right? That we're able to do that, and I think it's really important to recognize there's two options on the table. Now, obviously, for the most part, we're of the opinion that humanity has chosen to be free, right? Now that's key, but I still think it's important that what Tui has done is he's come out as a representative of one of the original tribes, as he said, representing the masculine energy, right, of this kind of this the divine nature is holistic in nature, right? It's I always use this example that when God told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, Eve didn't exist outside of Adam. She was one with Adam. She had not been taken out of him yet. So that commandment, that's the very first commandment in the Bible, to be fruitful and multiply. It was just Adam. So, and then later, what the woman is taken out, and then there's Adam and Eve. So Eve existed, so to speak, but she was one with Adam, who's just a symbol of being made from the dust of the earth, or being likened unto God, right? And because even in the scriptures, it doesn't say that God, it's always mistranslated. People always say that God blew life into Adam, but that's not what it says. What it says is then God breathed the breath of life into Adam. In other words, he just took a breath and manifested out of the dust of the earth. So that symbolism of God being, complete in and of himself, both, male and female, so to speak, all by himself, and not a perversion, but with the ability to reproduce himself. So to have Tui represent the masculine and Kim representing the feminine, this is it's a monumental thing in history, and it's very important that anybody deceived to think that there is someone else doing this, that it's not an option. There's an actual DNA that can access the system. There's not another one. There's one right now. There's one DNA that has that. Now there's other positions that will be. Kim has said that there's other tribal leaders that would hold positions. And she's told me that for a long time. And Tui's confirmed that. There's a lot of things that Kim has told me that Tui confirms just by the way he talks about it. And to be honest, there's no real way he could know a lot of these things. A lot of these things I haven't even shared until now. So I say it's really important that when one of my sources is telling me, one of my sources just reached out to me tonight and told me that the Kingdom of Manna, there's many people who are of the opinion that the Kingdom of Manna is the one, and they are spreading lies, and these are lies, that Kim has been removed from her position. That's not true, and I think that I personally think that's important. That's why I'm repeating it. So,
well, they always use the mirror, right? They always point at the other and say what's happened to them or what they're doing. So they've been removed. They've lost sovereignty. They lost.
Yeah, so this is it's just a big lesson on how like how that everyone has to learn on how there are some divine agreement that will be like fulfilled on its own, and if then like sometimes you might not know what to do, and then you try to guess, try and implement things to do, but once you learn that, then you change from that, and you learn to adapt, and that's what like when the Kingdom of Mana was established in the first place. For me, when they because what they did was they used the Elohim collective, and for me as a spiritual energy, I understand the Elohim, what they mean, and what it means to the DNA of the people, and when they use that as their title, like the title that they have.
I
Sorry.
wonder that your background noise is kind of muffling what you're saying. I don't know if there's a way for you to move a little bit away from where the other noise is coming from. It might would probably make it a little bit clearer.
Oh, okay. What about now? Is it
You good?
is it
Yeah,
better?
You good?
I'll just keep talking, and listen. It's just when it gets muffly, it's hard to pick out words, sometimes. So anyway, it just makes it a little.
Yeah. So this is the like example. This is the lesson that we will learn together, and it's really good to be doing that because we've forgotten so much about our about the truth about the agreement. Because every time people are born, they don't remember who we are, and so when it's passed down, so these lessons are not negative or positive, or you just have to learn from it. And so what they did, the Kingdom of Manna tried to use the sovereignty of what I call Elohim, and I know I deeply know what the Elohim and what they represent and how they've been involved in our history and in the past time. And like I was born, I know them. I know what Elohim. I know Michael, Michael, we call it in language. I know Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and all the Elohim collective. I understand their role in this timeline. So when they came in and they used it, I tried to, I know, okay, so you guys are Elohim, and this is your role. And so I tried to, that's why I wrote a letter to them. I tried to see the trigger, if they understood what I was talking about, but they didn't. They didn't know what I was telling them, and I tried to reach out to Kim, but then they didn't. They said that like what they said in their reply that they've there's a universal council on the planet that have chosen a new what's called this. Trusty to the trust or even to the AI that yeah. And so I told them, no, the agreement belongs to Kim. I tried to tell them, but they couldn't listen because they didn't understand my role. And so I could see through all the awareness because they, like, so then I contacted them and they did that. I said, okay, I tried to give a letter because
Uh-oh.
Tui, you're gone. We can't hear you.
Tui, 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 tui. All right. Well, it's very important, but
That's that. They're taking them out. Conspiracy. It's conspiracy.
conspiracy. That's it. Well,
Well,
I think it's
but anyways, to Tui's point, I mean, look, this is what's happening. It's what they were trying to do is basically they're trying to do what they always do, right? They're trying to steal the kingdom.
right.
They're trying to steal the rights or claim the rights, and you know, depending on your level of understanding, my understanding that what has happened is that we've been in this situation many times before, and we've tried to pull this off. And what happens is the bad guys they think they've identified someone who can take Kim's place, and so they kill Kim, and then they can't access the system, and then they destroy the planet. And there's lots of evidence actually to witness to that in the universe, right? There's all these various planets that have been destroyed, and there's elements to them that show that they were just like us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how that works, but it makes sense to me that in this moment it's our chance at redemption. It's our chance to do it right, and I think it's our last chance. This is the last chance, and this is the time we got to do it right. So that's why I think it's important to it's a burden that all of us share. It's not just it's not just Tui and it's not just Kim. Kim wouldn't let you do that. Like Kim is one of the most humble people in the world, considering all the things that she's really in command of. She is the quintessential reluctant leader. And not that she's not willing to lead, but she's so humble about things. That I've sat there with her on calls where I'm ready to blow up at people because I'm like, what are you talking about? The lies are spreading. And she'll just be as patient as she can be and loving and kind and and just until they kind of see, until they say something that's just ridiculous. And then Kim's I've been on calls with Kim where someone says, listen, with my signature and your codes, we can do a lot of good. And Kim replies, well, I don't need your signature for anything. Because basically, it's her DNA. And those same guys, they've claimed they're the same ones who've, you know, uh, they've signed paperwork to transfer the funds for the RV that ultimately would have empowered, you know, the enemy. And they think it's no big deal because they haven't done the economics on it to actually see, how, this would dramatically reduce the value of the dollar and it would, basically destroy the world economy. They don't see that. But you would think that if you're going to be the one who's in charge of stuff, that you'd have to see that, right? You'd have to know that. So thank God Kim does, right? Because she does understand it. But so we're in good hands, so to speak, at the moment.
Well, this is the time we're going to do it.
That's right.
It's already done.
That's right. I agree.
Was this the 7th time around?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And I
look
limited.
at the Matrix films, right? It was 7 times through for Neo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's again the same story, right? It's the one, it's the genetic anomaly that comes about, and now this is the 7th time around, and and the machines are getting very adept at killing us off, or each round.
It's like even what Tui was just talking about, like every 2,000 years you have this anomaly, right? So if you were to trace back, just like 6,000 years, right? So you take the mitochondria in Eve, right? Now you'd have to read the scriptures where the scriptures say that Adam named all the animals and plants and animals of the planet. So then, now it's not talking about the word; it's talking about the character attached to those, right? So like, you made a lion, and then now a lion still acts like a lion to this day, right? Now, over in Matthew, it says that God named all the animals. So Adam did name all the animals, and then over in Matthew, God named all the animals. How do you reconcile those two things? The only way to reconcile them is to say, well, then Adam must have been this symbol of this being, or God, right? So that's why it says Adam, or God, breathed in the breath of life to Adam. He took a breath, and in that he took from the source energy, the plasma around him. He formed himself out of the dust of the earth. So that would make Eve, that version of Eve, the mitochondrion Eve, the first being, so to speak, right? That was the first created being, and she was made without the knowledge really of where she came from. So she was made from the rib and the womb, and then she ends up being the the first being. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is, there's different versions of what the Garden of Eden was, because the Syrian version has it being like they were driven out of in the Bible it says they were driven out of the garden. In the Syrian version, they kind of escaped, right? they left the garden, and it was because of Eve's actions to want to know what was going on that they left, right? So if you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, well, because Eve left, they escaped to actually go back to the earth to have life, right? And then they were fruitful and they multiplied. And then you had the same with Joshua, the son of Nun. Joshua, the son of Nun, shows up in Egypt. Everybody else is slaves. So if everybody's slaves, everybody knows who's everybody's kid is, right? Like, you're the son of Moses, you're the son of John. So Joshua shows up, and he's the son of Nun, right? And they spell it Nunn, but it's really Nun, None. He just showed up, and he was 30 years old, right? And then 30 years later, when they went to the Red Sea, he was still 30 years old. Now, how'd that happen, right? and then when you get up into the wilderness of Sinai, everybody always talks about Moses, but it was Joshua who was up on, like, with Moses. When God said, "Come up on top of the mountain alone," Joshua went with Moses. Now, if God tells you to come up alone, why are you bringing your friend? The reason why is because it was Joshua who told Moses to come up to the mountain alone, right? And then every time Moses would go to talk to God, go to talk to Yahweh, he'd go over to Joshua's tent. Like, how did that? Why would you go there? And then when the final Exodus was happening, right? They had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Joshua was the one who led them. He led, and he told all of them, stay back because you haven't been here before. So just watch me, stay back a little bit, but follow me. And then he kept walking. And when Joshua came in, and then it's not until Joshua's like 100 something years old, and he's up in, and they've conquered all of Canaan land, the promised land. And he said to them, it was me. He tells them, it was me. I led you out. I did this, right? Because that was, not, think about it. So you're freeing them from slavery, right? It's the Exodus, right? So that was Joshua. That's the same genetic anomaly to he's talking about, right? That had the ability to free them. Then you have the Messiah. It's the same thing. I mean, he was the one educating all of them, told them they would do better things, than him. His job was to teach that, And I mean, even the Lord's Prayer, it's all talk. The Lord's Prayer, especially if you start to use the Gnostic text, but even if you don't, if you just use the text, the basic, King James version of the Bible, the Lord's Prayer is what it's called. And he tells the disciples, says, look, you don't know how to pray as you ought. Because what the scriptures say is that you should pray without ceasing. Now, if we look at what we think prayer is, like I need stuff, I ask for it, or whatever, it would be hard to pray without ceasing, right? But if you looked at prayer as just a innate communication we have with God, you know what, we can, and you could do it without ceasing. So that's a state of being, right? Not a specific act of bowing, right? It's a state of existence that we hold within ourselves to be in this moment, like when you're in love, you can be in love without ceasing, right? Because when you're in love, like you see a car and that reminds you of something you might want to get for the woman you love, and you see flowers, it reminds you of them. You be at work, you could be working out, and like a pretty girl comes up and hits on you, and you're like, I'm taken, right? Because you're in love. So when you're in love, it's a type of prayer, right? Because you're in a constant state that exists. You're in an existence, And I use that example, corny though it may be, with my sons. You know, I held that vibe for 18 years, right? It was just a constant state. I just knew I was going to have twin boys, right? I didn't even have a wife most of that time, right? So I just held that vibe. So now it makes sense that you would have the same genetic anomaly. The problem is that most of us are trained with this savior syndrome, and we're looking for a savior. And but there's always been spiritual leaders on the planet that were more connected to you know to God or to the spirit or the energy or the reality, but they're servants, right? I mean, the real job is a servant. They're not to be exalted above us and press everybody else down. Their job is to teach. You know, so I figure our job is to learn.
Always need to learn. There's
Yeah.
always something else. It's interesting. You said you held that vibe for 18 years, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I also had held a vibe for 18 years of father, husband, and
Sure.
it's just interesting, that there's a synchronicity of that period. Because that's the vibe right here. It's a family vibe.
Absolutely. I agree. You know, I really believe we're in miraculous times though. I mean, miraculous times. You know,
Time for
I'll,
miracles.
just because Tui's not here, I'll share this story, but I probably wouldn't have shared it publicly, but I'm going to tell people. So 2 Mondays ago, when Tui came along, I went into I was meditating, and I had a very lucid, clear meditation. And and people, when you meditate, you see lots of crazy stuff. And I saw myself with like this whirlwind of a cloud. And I kind of spanned from the third dimension up to the fifth dimension. And it kind of created this portal. And I looked back up the top of the tornado that I was creating. I looked at the top, and there was a little girl at the top of the tornado, and she was wearing this little, like a princess, like from Camelot. And I saw a little girl, and she was there, right? And I thought she was coming down, but she didn't come down. Now I saw that with my own eyes, right? And then later that day, the dress that little girl wore, showed up at my house, and my wife found it, the actual physical dress, right? And I have pictures of it. I'll post it for people. That happened. Now, I didn't buy the dress. Um, you know, uh, Leia didn't buy the dress. My daughter had never seen it before. You know, it just showed up in the house, but it was the same dress. It had gold. It's gold and white, and it's got sheer arms. It's like right out of Camelot. It's the same kind of dress. And so I'm fascinated by things like that, that kind of anomaly. I'm like, where did this come from? And of all days, now, why is it here today? After I just saw this in meditation.
Well, how did it appear? I mean, was it like a delivery guy? It was found in the corner. I mean, how did it appear?
It was just laying on the floor in my daughter's bedroom. Just all of a sudden, we just walked right over it at first, just because it's kids. There's stuffed animals everywhere. It's crazy.
Well, it came in a tornado.
You know what I think? I mean, I don't know, but my perception of it is kind of like bringing something from the fifth dimension, which is intangible, down into the third dimension.
Manifesting things into material. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't explain it any other way. I've had a whole week to try to figure out where it came from, and we haven't been able to figure it out. So it came from nowhere.
Yeah.
That really happened, by the way. It happened. I can't explain it. It happened.
As I said before, I manifested you.
Yeah.
You didn't exist. There 2 months ago. You just weren't around. Because
Dan, this is true. This is true too. Look, I'll give you another example. It's going to back up what you just said.
Yeah.
I spoke to an energy worker. She was excellent, and she said, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "Well, I do." I said, "I feel like there's something else I'm supposed to do, and I can't tell if it's somebody that's already in my world or if it's someone I'm going to meet." You and I started talking the next day.
I just out of the blue, right?
Yeah. And that's what she told me. She said it's someone she said, "You're right. You have to do something else, and it's someone who's not in your world."
Yeah.
So
and a couple weeks before that, maybe not even a couple, maybe even a week before that, even 5 days, something like that. I was speaking with Cleve, who's one of my partners, and I said, Cleve, you have the kind of the opposite side of QAnon, right? He thinks it's a LARP. He thinks it's not real. He's anti-Trump. Based. I mean, I don't want to put it that heavy on him, but I said, come on and be on a show with me, and we'll talk this out. So the interaction between us taking two different sides is actually helpful in communication. But he declined. But then 5 days later, I'm talking with you. Of course, I had no idea we would have a show or anything along those lines. I was just inquiring a little bit about the background of the trust, because I was getting, I've had, other information coming to me from my different, business dealings that we're working on doing things, and the trust is like coming over from this angle, the trust is coming in over this angle, every which way I'm going, and of course, and as I said, I was listening to Thomas Williams, on Lucid Dreamer for a year, and then feeling that this is correct. This was sounding true, and so even though everything that I was involved with on every side had to do with the GCR and that coming about, it was not ringing true, and what I was hearing from Thomas was, and then the things I was able to check on with the downloads into the U.S. Treasury and other things that was said, okay, well, I'm willing to be wrong. Please, if I can find that I'm not on the right path, please let me correct it. But that path was wrong. That path was not wrong. I needed to follow that path to end up here, right? And even when I met with Swisindo and Bapaksuki at that time, that was my path, to end up there, on and to have a spiritual event of me like bringing that shirt with me, and knowing that, have no idea why to bring the shirt, and then to end up in front of him, and the shirt was the spiritual connection between me and him. to realize that this needed to happen. So, but however we end up here, we're here now, and at this point, where everything is about ready to break loose on every level, we have to bring this information forward. And if we know, like the Kingdom of Manna is now out there deluding people, we have to let that people know. We have to shine the light. If we know that the QAnon is basically saying trust the plan, we have to be aware of what the plan that they're presenting is, and judge that along the way, are we going in the right direction? Because I can accept that it's another psyop of sorts, and of course it is. But if it's by the good guys,
I agree. Look, if it's going to work to the greater good, I'm for it. Period. And and I'll say something. I don't regret. I'm with you. I don't look back and go, "Oh, I was on the wrong path. I'm a shot." You know what? We were all deceived pretty much by one of these things, right? I mean, I was deceived by my religion growing up, and then I was.
How could you not be? You'll have you're in good company with people that you would trust as being in power around the world, whether it's in the banking and government or military or religion. They're all lining up to do this.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and so even now, it's like they were given a date to the 15th, and where are they? Last I heard from Kim is that they hadn't got back to her because Steve Mnuchin had made promises that he was going to bring all the money in today, and today was going to be the big, the new date for the RV. And I can't even hardly check what they're saying anymore, because I just, it's the same thing. I can tell you exactly what they're saying right now. Right?
Yeah, I said right now,
last year,
the pattern. This is the how many days off it will be now. It'll stretch out to this much time, and then after 2 months, it'll fall back to where it's coming down, and then it'll be like tomorrow, today, then it's quiet, and then 3 days from now, and then so through 2 weeks, it just expands back out again, and then it comes back in, and it's the same pattern over and over. 3 times a year it happens, where the RV is happening, usually towards the end of the year, towards the beginning of the year, and somewhere in towards the Easter.
Right, because here's what's coming up. Here's the next legend of the RV that will be coming, is that the St. Germain Trust can only be distributed on Easter or Christmas. So Easter's coming. So that's going to be the next date that they, if it's allowed to survive. Now, hopefully, that it'll just save people, and it'll rescue their heart and their mind that's been devastated by this weight. Scripture in the Bible, I think about this all the time in reference to the RV. It says, hope deferred maketh the heart sick. When you get your hopes up and it's deferred, and get your hopes up and it's deferred.
Listen, I think there's a very big part of this plan is to kill hope.
Yes.
Right? To line everyone up with hope, to wear it out, to basically get to the point where people become hopeless.
That's right. And I think, and I totally agree with that. That's I mean, that is a fact, by the way. That's a fact. That is exactly their methodology. And you know what is frustrating to them is they cannot understand how we can still have hope after all they've taken. They're like,
things eternal.
Right. It's the, like, how can you still be, and I know, Kim has told me stories where they would just be laughing at us. They would drop some, and I would get intel directly after the Chinese elders used to have a Thursday morning meeting, and I would get intel right from that meeting. And I can tell you every piece of disinformation started with them. And we would take it and add to it and interpret it, and come up with all types of, oh, this makes perfect sense because it's the spring equinox, and this is why, and we would have all these other things that are attached to it. But
yeah, the Iraqi minister got together with the Pope. I don't know. some reason. It's always there's some reason.
I remember when there was an eclipse in Iraq. And
yeah,
I was like, I get it, and I figured it out, right? So I called my white hat source, who was like, he was in the know, he was involved directly. I called him up. He said, man, you nailed it. And now in hindsight, I'm like, what a fool I was, right? So I took that and I posted it. I was like, boom, I just dropped it, thinking I had figured it out, right? And lo and behold, you know, it didn't happen. So,
Well, I think, it's going to happen today, right? No, it's not going to happen. Stop waiting. Stop it. Stop it. Stop waiting. Stop waiting
well,
for the GCRRV. Take
you know,
action. Share
the
the
other
link.
thing, the other thing about the Kingdom of Manna, right, is now I haven't checked this, so excuse me if this is not accurate, but there is a currency out there, a cryptocurrency that is Manna, right? And I'm pretty sure it goes back to the Kingdom of Manna, right? And their financial system they're trying to introduce is their crypto death-based system that they're trying to run. You know, um, that's why, like, even with all these cryptos, it's like, there's different ways of looking at it. And as long as the elite have control of it, it will always be something that they can use to manipulate and manage us, right? But what gives those systems power is our buy-in. The markets are based on buyer confidence, right? The crypto is the same thing, right? It's like if we believe it's real. Now, there's community-based currency, which I really want to transition. Like, if there's a use for it, you know what? In the way you talk about it, you know what? I can get behind that if there's a place for it. And I don't know. I can also entertain, like, well, we don't need it. I'm not sure though. So, but what I know we don't need is, there's certain, like, the Bitcoin. I am so anti Bitcoin. I'm so and I understand there's ways to make money with it. And you know what? If you can and you can jump in and do that, I still wouldn't recommend it, but I understand. I understand.
I,
You know,
I see it. I see it as a tool. Right? It's in the community, the TBC community, Kringle Society. We saw Bitcoin as a tool to a bridge to the existing fiat system, and it's a required thing because it's good to have our community-based money, but if we need to go and pay a bill that's in the fiat existing financial system, you need to get that bridge, and that's the way we've seen it, and it is a technology that can be used for both good and bad. We can basically shape it into something better, and even Bitcoin can have a positive use in it. But I would say that when you're on these exchanges, well, you have that bridge, it is costing you. It is a win, lose, 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 lose situation. More often than not, it's like a casino. You're going to end up losing. There's transaction fees, there's the up and down of the market. Ultimately, you're losing more than you're winning because the exchanges exist to make money off of you. Whether the market is going up or down, the one that wins is the exchange, and that's why they have money to pay you, right? Is because they're paying out of their profits, right? And that's how they're able to pay you. But it's because others are losing. Even you're losing at that time from what you put into it. So anyway, that's my point about it. It's just a tool, and you can basically use a tool and understand that it may be difficult and you may be costing you, but you get some benefit out of it at the moment. So anyway, that's my take
no,
on
no,
crypto in general.
and I can't argue with that. And everything has been a tool. I'm of the opinion it's time to move on and start using real stuff. You
Well,
know,
I'm also see things that we just can't stop using existing financial system, turn everything off and onto some other system. There has to be, again, the bridge. You have to be able to move over with something as it's built, and to build that, you have to find ways of interfacing. So the Kringle coin is it's different because there is no exchange, and it really cannot be on an exchange because it only has one price per day, and it's set at midnight Fiji time, at the beginning of time. It's set based upon how many people joined the previous day, right? And so it goes up based on 1 grain of gold for each member. So that there is no margin. That means you can't negotiate the price. It doesn't go up and down. You can always negotiate the price of something you're buying with it, but you can't change the price of what what it is going out at that day of the coin. So when you're going to use this in as a bridge to get over to a new system, you have to understand that this is like more like gold than it is anything else. And if you treat it as an asset, like gold is an asset, you could borrow against it. So I see that's the easiest way to get the existing system to adopt it, to say there's an asset, value the asset, create paper, because the financial system understands paper, even if it's in digital form, in the computer systems. But to create this instrument in which they're able to deal with, and then have value distributed to the people in fiat, that they can say borrow and say get a house, get a car, and start making loan payments. But they wouldn't have been able to get that loan because they had no asset before. But this suddenly now they have an asset that's grown in their possession. So that's why I see as a bridge. It also doesn't release an untold amount of value into a system that can't absorb it. Because if you end up with one TBC coin, it's $8 million, right? You can only get that through promotions by participation. So anyway, there's a system there. There's a reason to use it. Yeah, I didn't really mean to break us into a commercial type thing, but my link is down below in the description if you want. Actually, I'm going to make a deal with anyone that wants to join me as a partner. I will pay your fee, your lifetime wallet fee, which is 4 grains of gold, which is around $11 right now. It can be a little higher, a little lower, but it's paid in Bitcoin. But if you want to join me as a partner, I will not only pay for your fee, I will pay because there's promotions. If you bring in 2 people, that also pay their lifetime wallet fee, and you get a lot of cookie points that go into your wallet, when you redeem those points. So I will pay for theirs. So that I'll pay for yours and their fees. And that gives you those extra cookie points. All you have to do is partner with me, which means you buy $100 worth of coin from me. I'll make that offer. I was going to do kind of a little video about that, but I just inserted it here. And I'm doing it really because this was our 3rd year anniversary today. Where we had the event last night. The people that have been participating, they ended up, some of them were winning $2,000 in Bitcoin for their participation and bringing in a lot of members. I think up to $10,000 in Bitcoin was passed out last night. I don't know how many total people. It must have been 10 plus people had received, awards of that much. So it was so for the anniversary, 3rd year anniversary, I'm doing a video where I'm kind of outlining our accomplishments and how we rank up against the cryptocurrency world, and we're really in good place. We're in the top, 5 in amount of daily transactions. I found a site that could rank the wallet site. So we're doing about 13,800 transactions per day, 500,000 transactions per month, something like that. It's quite a lot of transactions, that are happening. Or these are unique visits. I should say unique visits to the website of where the wallet is. So for this, I'm going to offer to pay the people's fees to get them, and that partner with me. So I'm going to make up a way to make that easy, and they can pay me in PayPal or send by Western Union or maybe a MoneyGram, something like that. So anyway, I did break into a commercial.
No, you're okay. Hey, man, like I said, it's your commercial. You're one of the good guys, Dan. It's okay.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, I appreciate all your help, and I help everyone. And this is our other GCR. I always look at this as a form of a GCR.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about us in Fiji, and we don't even understand the the the, the Fiat currency that's going on right now. And it will be, like if we introduce them to another much more advanced platform, it will be, I'll go, you can even handle the transaction when it's in money. Now that it's in a different platform, we're gonna, I'm not, like I know there are some people in Fiji that will be able to understand and would be able to use and be able to, would love to actually work with you. Yeah, but for the native people, we only understand free.
Man, I'll take that. I'm native. Tui, my name is Stephen Paul Rao. That's my full name. So
Okay.
Stephen means king or crown. Paul means small, so small king. And my last name, the way it's supposed to be spelled, is Rau.
Ah, something. Yeah.
Ra.
So it's not
I might have to I might have
it's
to
not a
change it now.
coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
I guess
Yeah.
I guess
Not a
not.
coincidence. No.
Yeah. So for me, my name is Ratu. That's the first name. Ratu. That's the name of our collective here in Fiji, Ratu. And then my second name is Serufama, which is equivalent to Seraphim. So I'm using Seraphim as my name as um, in YouTube and in Google. And so Tui Loma Loma is my last name. Tui means chief, and Loma Loma in our language simply means in the inner spirit. So Tui Loma Loma, that's what it means, the inner spirit. And so I guess
Kamana.
yeah, Loma Loma. Loma means inner, and Loma Loma means the spirit, the inside of the spirit. It's like it's already in the spirit and then inside of the spirit. That's what it means. So the king of the inner spirit. And so the Serafama, which is the second name, if you've seen my name written down, it refers to the Zeraphim. And so now I know exactly what the Zerafim are, and the Elohim and the Orphim and the people that the Orphim that are that are born now from 2000 till now, all the children that are being born on the planet right now. I know the contracts, and I understand why they're here, to be able to enable us to be talking in this way, to be able to understand these things that we're talking about. That's why they're here. So you'll be hearing a lot of small children around me, and I said, yeah. So the angels being sent here, and I call them Orafim, the new lighted ones. And so yeah, so when I was much younger, I was able to understand who I was. I was a guardian, and I was able to actually meet some other what you call beings. I was able to take the spirit in my my awareness within me, and if I sleep or even if I meditate, I'm able to take it around. Not a lot of people can do that, but I was fortunate to be able to do that when I was much younger, 7 until I was 14. And then when I was 21, I was able to master it. I was able to move it around and control movement. And so I can dream and then I control it. And so I was able to meet a lot of other beings, a lot of feline people, the galactics that are actually involving in the GCR and the Gesara and Nesara. I was able to meet them. I was able to meet the Great White Throne when I was young. Um, I used to be scared of the fellow when I was much younger, but now that he's dead, and not just dead, but he's agreed to stop and to change. Yeah, but those are like I can actually talk about those things maybe when we talk about sovereignty, because those they build up to the meaning of what sovereignty really is and how it has to be returned to the awareness. And so even this us we discussing about this is actually part of that returning of people to know who they really are. So like I'm glad and I'm actually blessed, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that you guys have provided. And so, you guys were just discussing, and I got cut off because of my internet connection. You guys were discussing about how you guys met and how you just came up, and now it's just a show. It's almost now it's a three-way show, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everyone that's listening in all over the world. I'm thankful for the people in the chat room that are taking live, all the questions and all the answers. I take time to actually look at them. And some people are still asking me about the 12 census. And like I said yesterday, I want them to actually figure it out, because it's a responsibility of sovereignty that you have to learn on your own. I don't like to, spoil the agreement of spoiling your freedom to actually learn about who you are. So if you can do that, you can even Google it. If you Google it, 12 census, it will be there. It's not a hidden thing. It's not. But the funny thing is that people, they've been using their body for all of their life, but they don't even realize, or they don't even take time to fix this, because they're so focused on things outside of them, and they don't even take time to think within, think and understand them. So even now I'm speaking, and that's one of the senses. So I'm thinking, and I'm able to say things and interpret them. So that's one of the 12 senses, and you can figure out the rest for yourself, and it's part of your learning. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. We've hit our 3-hour mark on the dot.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome.
So it was a good way to fill out the end. Now, yesterday we ended. I ended the recording after this, so that we were doing an after show. This, breaking it here is good. I think, for in general, 3 hours is a long video anyway. We've been doing it every day. But we still have a conversation after. But I did cancel the video after, because we were talking about the Kingdom of Manna, and we decided maybe we don't put this one out until we know that we want to address that, and we did address it today. But the after show talk, I called it After Talk. There's about 3 videos that were posted there. People are welcome to go and check those out as part of this series that we were doing, GCR to Big Lie. And now we're doing the Quantum Financial System series. And maybe now tomorrow we might end up doing the Sovereign, How to Become a King, the Sovereignty series. So we might start that tomorrow. So again, please pound that like, get the sharing going. Please leave a positive comment, and if you're interested in partnering with me on in the Pringle Society and TPC Coin, please go ahead and contact me via the contact information in the description below. And then till tomorrow, we'll see you. Have a good day.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Peace out.